Oh, so that thing that IMA had been working for over a month and a half for Wendy, that'd be okay. They finally miraculously got it done and sent it to her. I was like, okay, that's good. That's one. No idea. That's one of Debbie's grows. Yeah, you can go ahead and turn it on if you want. Yeah, Matt does. But, yep. That way we don't forget.
Hey, Chris, we ready to go? Here we go. All right, here we go. Good evening, everyone. I hereby call this City Council work session to order. The purpose of tonight's session is to hear presentations from the candidates for the position of City Administrator. Tonight, we will hear from 3 candidates who are under consideration for the position of City Administrator. Each candidate will be invited into council chambers one at a time and allotted 40 minutes to present. After all the individual presentations, the candidates will return for a panel session to respond to the questions from the community. These questions will be read by our Community Engagement Director, Jessica Hoffman. We will now begin with the individual candidate presentations. I'd like to welcome our first candidate, John Holmes. Welcome to Council Chambers, Mr. Holmes.
Good evening. How are you doing?
All right, the floor is yours.
All right. Council, first I'd like to say thank you and appreciate all the time that I've spent with you already. I really appreciated that. Great conversations, and I've learned a lot from just the conversations I had with you. And for those that I haven't met yet or had discussions with, I look forward to tomorrow. This was kind of a daunting task as we kind of get going, as I get going here, is that to think about a community that you're coming into, and thinking about what is on your docket, what is on your radar screen for year 1, year 3, and year 5. And so as I was going through this, the one thing that kind of jumped out to me is that I kind of went back to some basics, to thinking about a few things, is that what the role of the city administrator is, what is the responsibilities, and what are the functions that they're supposed to have, a little bit. And so I went back and I thought about that a little bit. And one thing is that the city administrator form, or city manager form of government, really comes down to, it's no different than what you see with, say, school boards, is that you have a school superintendent that is working with, as kind of a subject matter expert, to work with an elected body to help them lead the community and the organization in a positive direction and do things. When it comes time to talk about specific things as far as the Family Medical Leave Act, I could stand here and talk to you for the next hour about that, and all of you would be just falling asleep. There's certain specialized things that it's important to have somebody that is an expert in and knows a lot about. But overall, municipal administration kind of covers 2 main functional areas. That's governance and organizational management. When we talk about governance, we know that really the big thing is that that's the city as an organization. That's the city's interaction with the community. That's not just the residents, that's residents and non-residents, because it's all applicable. Anybody that comes into the community and into the corporate city limits of a city, they are subject to all the laws and everything that even a resident is. There's no, you're not getting out of it just because, well, I don't live here. No, if you're in, you still have to follow the speed limits. You still have to, littering and public conduct and things like that. All of that still apply. But the overall arching role and goal is that we want good governance. And when you always hear that phrase, people talk about we want government to run like a business. And what they're really talking about is that they want good, reasonable decisions. But I put on the thing is that, what I see good governance is. And this is the thing I think that people want. They want governance that is fair, transparent, accountable, responsive, that when people are bringing up problems or concerns, that we're being responsible. We're not just brushing those off. Transparent, everybody sees what we're doing. Conducting public business in a public forum that people can be a part of and see as far as the deliberation process and things like that. They also wanted ethical, that we're following the rules of law, not only the federal and state laws, but also our own. They're wanting to see that we're following our own laws. They also wanted efficient and effective. They want us to be making good use of public resources and doing so in a responsible manner. I always use this analogy to talk about the difference between efficient and effective, is that I could propose a possibility or a way to make sure that we have zero crime in the community. And that would be is that we assign every man, woman, and child in the community, we assign them a police officer to make sure that they're following the law. That would be potentially very, very effective, but it wouldn't be a very, very good use of an efficient use of city resources. So, and that kind of is the difference there. There's some people that one thing I'm kind of proud of is that I say this, and I know I'll get a speeding ticket tomorrow, but is that I'm proud of, hey, it's like, you know what, I don't have any points. I couldn't even tell you when the last time I got a speeding ticket. So I don't have a lot of public or contact with police officers and stuff like that, or the community development department, is that I rarely have contact with them as far as code violations or needing a building permit. But when I need them to be efficient and to help with me a lot. Participatory is that the citizens get a chance to voice their concerns in a public forum, that they get to approach you either as a corporate body like this, or that they get to contact you and share their concerns and ask questions about things. And everything that I've seen here is that the city of Sedalia is very, very good at doing that. They give that opportunity, and that you are responsive when they do ask questions. And the last thing I would say is consensus oriented, is that you guys are working as a corporate body to reach the best decisions as a group. And meaning that it's also utilitarian, that it is the best decision possible for the greatest amount of people. And so that, I think, is what people expect good governance to be. Organizational management is all of the back stuff, all of the things that happen behind the scenes. It's the strategic planning, the coordination, the day-to-day oversight of organizations, resources, processes, and allowing people to reach, identifying what the goals are and allowing people to work towards achieving those specific goals. And it's also about effectively utilizing the resources in a very, very responsible manner. And again, it goes back to that efficiency and effectiveness. And optimize the efficiency and productivity and overall performance. It's on the a lot of it is on the staff side, is what is going on. Sometimes it's referred to back of house. There's front of house in a restaurant, all the stuff that's happening out in the dining area where everybody sees, and then there's the back of house, things that are going on, making sure that supplies are coming in and cooks are cooking and everything that it needs to be done to make an organization run is getting done. So, and the management of the resources in meeting the needs, wants, goals, projects, aspirations of the residents, the community, the elected body, and all other stakeholders. That is the goal. The one thing that I found is that I've been doing this city management since about 2008. And the one thing that I found is that those two things kind of go hand in hand. They are symbiotic. Is that even though there's the governance that is the front end where people see all of this stuff, a lot of the exact same things are needed on the backside, on the just making sure that how the organization runs day to day that people don't always see, is that is running the exact same way. Those two things feed off of each other, making sure that, again, the work that we're doing behind the scenes is fair and transparent, that we're accountable not only to our department heads, but also to the elected body, because we all work for you. And so, as well as that we're accountable to the community, because they're the only reason that we are here, the only reason that we're have this job is to serve the community. And we always need to keep that in mind so that accountability is there. But like I said, those things go hand in hand and they feed off each other. One leads the other, and we can't lose track of that. I ran across this many years ago. This was in Boston College Press back in 2009. And it's that it differs, it was talking about what the difference is between public sector priorities and private sector, and what is the difference. Public sector priorities come down to increased productivity, management of the workforce, organizational ethics, cost leadership, and increased services and products. I'm going to talk about those just a quick minute. Most of those are, when we stop and start thinking about them, most of those are pretty self-explanatory. There's the list in the order that they were ranked. Really what comes out of there a little bit is that some of the ones that we see is organizational in the private sector, organizational ethics goes down a little bit, cost leadership stays about the same, increased services and products, that falls a little bit, profits takes its place, management of the workforce also takes one of the other ones that drops down a little bit and drops off the list. But these 5 are the top items. So if we look at that, increased productivity, we know what that means, is that we're just increasing operational efficiency with the existing staff and increasing the amount of completed for the organization within the available resources and budget considerations. Another way of saying that is that we're taking the people that we got or the resources we got, and we're maximizing how much gets done with that. Is that we're working towards being absolutely efficient. There is no downtime or very little downtime with our staff. They've got all the work that they need to do to be keeping busy. Anything new comes up, we can add that to them, and they're able to do it. There's a little bit of give and take there, but we're getting a lot done with the available resources that we have. And we're always looking for opportunities, whether it's use of technology or what have you, to become more productive. We're taking every opportunity to do that. I'm going to jump around because there's a couple of those that need a little more explanation. Number 1 and number 2, I think, that as for me personally, they have a little more relevance to what we're doing and in public service. So I'm going to jump down to number 5 is increase services and products, increasing the number of desired and valued services or products to the community or citizens within the existing budget considerations. When I think about, what Justin was talking about yesterday, about that they do bulky pickup or big, not just regular trash, but they do special pickup like old mattresses and things like that. I can guarantee you that a lot of communities, whether they own the trash service and provide the trash services or they contract it out, is that a lot of communities don't do that. They look at that as like, well, that's something above and beyond, and talking about that is that, all right, and it's still fairly low. The trash service is still fairly low. I know that like the communities that I've seen are paying $30 or $35 a month, and it's still, this is down in the teens here. So that is something that, if you don't live outside of Sedalia and you're not going out searching that out, you're not necessarily going to know what a bargain that is and the good services that you got. The other thing was the brush pickup, the brush and storm debris pickup and things like that. That is, an extra job on top of everything else that staff are doing. So at some point in the past, they took a look at what they're doing and said, yeah, we got time. We got time. We have the staff that we can pick that up and do that and that sort of thing. So public, the organization and the department heads are looking at those type of things of what new things that are going to be valuable for the community that we can add to that. The next one is management of the workforce. And I think probably this is number 2, but for me, I would say that it's a little more than that, is that it's managing employees and work resources in a manner that optimizes productivity, reduces risk, ensures compliance, and it involves planning, scheduling, forecasting labor needs, tracking time, attendance, and managing employees' performance. I kind of was, when I was talking to the mayor today, as I was talking about, we were talking about the 3rd law of thermodynamics, which to make it easy, instead of using the fancy jargon, it really comes down to is that everything, if left unattended, turns to garbage. Everything can turn to crap right before our eyes if we're not managing it, if we're not on top of it, if we're not attending to it as we should. So, when we stop and think about that for managing our workforce, it means that we're cross-training, is that we're checking in employee performance management, we're doing evaluations, that sort of thing, checking the employees' performance through feedback, through conversations, through daily coaching, encouragement, and just working to develop them as employees. Compliance, making sure that they're following the rules, not only the internal rules of the organization, but Fair Labor Standards Act, all of that type of thing. So in short, it's being a good boss, being an employer, making sure that we're helping our employees be successful. If we're doing that as a manager, if we're doing that as a key aspect of our job, a lot of other things are going to fall into line. Another aspect of that is employee engagement, is managing that we're not just waiting until the end of the year as the year goes by to check talk to them about their performance or see how they're doing, is that we're doing in-service interviews. Hey, we're still here, you've been here for X amount of years, what do you like about it here? Instead of waiting till they exit to find out what they like, what they didn't like. At that point, it's too late. Let's talk to them early. Let's talk to them early and often to figure out, what are they liking? What are they not liking? What do they wish us as bosses were doing for them and stuff. So, and the result out of that is that you get a lot of employees that feel, hey, these folks care about us. They care about me as a person, not just that I'm a widget getting things done for the organization, but they care about me. One of the things I absolutely loved yesterday was watching those that went on the tour interacting with the department heads, but also interacting with some of the other staff, not just the department heads, and joking around with them. Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. Things like that. Is that really builds a level of camaraderie of that. It's not just us versus them. It's not us up here and you down here. There's an understanding that we all have our roles. They do some things that I would be lost and destroy something if I tried to get on a backhoe and run it. Some of those guys do amazing jobs and stuff and are out there at 3 o'clock in the morning when a water line breaks and they're down in the hole and they're wet and they're cold and stuff like that. And I think, I'm thankful that we have guys like that have that level of commitment to go out and do those type of things. So all of that is just working towards getting them, keeping them, making sure that they have the resources that they need. So I think management of the workforce is very, very important, and getting them to be committed to the community and really interested in the whole idea of public service. So we've talked about 3 of those. The other things I want to talk about is real quick is organizational ethics and cost leadership. One thing that we did as far as management of the workforce is that I started tracking this kind of stuff to give a snapshot of the employee and what we had. So we started doing some things different and reaching out and having more conversations. And in the space of about 5 years, we are able to move our tenure up from 7.05 years to 7.4, reduce our average sick leave usage. We were not counting average vacation leave that they had on the books, so we started counting that in 22. Started looking at the average wage of what the employees were. We were well behind in 2017 when I started with the city of Aurora. But this gave us a real good snapshot of what we were doing, if a little bit of that, the things that we were doing, the work that we were trying to do with the employees, to take care of our employees. This gave us a little bit of information that could show that we're making positive impacts. The best thing that we have to keep in mind is that you train somebody to do street work or to be a police officer or whatever, you get them trained well. There's hundreds of thousands of other organizations in just the state alone that they could go work at. But we want to keep the best and the brightest here. We want to train them and get them to stay here, and making sure that we're doing a good job of that, of taking care of our employees is part of that. Cost leadership is that really pretty self-explanatory, is that really in the business world, you're trying to produce the widget at the lowest possible price and beat the price of all your competitors. In the private sector, that means is that we're working, that everything that we have to do is that we're working to try to do it as cost efficiently as possible. When it comes to something as simple as buying supplies for the offices, to buying a $500,000 sewer vac truck, things like that, is that we're working to get the best price possible, to get the most bang for our buck on every dollar that we spend. And to just that we're working towards that. In the interest in the private sector is profit. For us, it's just we're stretching our resources as far and as tightly as we can, and being good stewards of the public funds. The other thing is organizational ethics, sometimes called business ethics, and this goes back to what I was saying a little bit ago, is that we want government to run like a business, and this is all of that. We want ethical behavior, principles, values, standards that guide what we do on a day in and day basis, not only the council, but also our staff, is that they're making good decisions in everything that they do. How they treat each other is a good indication of how they're going to be treating our customers, which is the public. So if we're setting a high standard for ourselves as the leaders of the organization, that and communicating these expectations to our staff, that is helping and helping and say, this is what we expect. This is how we want you to act. This is how we want you to treat people. Sometimes it's just a matter of as easy as making sure that we're being responsive to emails or phone calls. That's sort of thing. Taking a moment to talk to the person that calls to complain about the pothole or the chunk of curb that is missing. It's all of that type of stuff. But that, again, like I said, kind of has a symbiotic relationship with just governance and organizational management. So we're working on promoting a positive work environment, promoting trust with our stakeholders, emphasizing communication, and contributing to the organization's reputation. Is that I think it's very important for people to know is that we're doing the things that we should do. I take the Sunshine Law very, very serious from the standpoint of that I don't want to ever be seen that I'm circumventing it or anything like that. And I think it's just that is just a good route to take, and that eliminates a lot of problems, and you build a lot of trust that way. So first year items, top priority for me would be learn as much as possible about the organization, the community, and the stakeholders. The one thing that I look at is that I need to, as quickly as possible, in order to be a benefit for y'all, is to make sure that, I think I've been around southern Missouri and Arkansas too much that y'all kind of popped out, is that to be a benefit and to be an asset for you is that I need to learn as much about the organization as possible and as quickly as possible. And I also think is that working on building strong relationships with council, staff, stakeholders, community leaders in the community, and just work towards establishing lines of communication. I think that's very, very important because I want to begin contributing to the overall success of the organization and taking ownership of my responsibilities. This is my things to do, and making sure that I'm working on getting the things that Kelvin has done and been working on as I take those over, start working to get those under my responsibility and take care of them. Education and research phase is a lot of reading. I refer to this as drinking from the fire hydrant. All of the information that would be coming is that reviewing all of the city codes, looking at when the last code is through Municode. They will come in and they'll do an audit. They'll take a look at, read every code and make sure that this code over here is not in conflict with another code in another section. So they'll look through all of that. When was the last time that is done? Is that done? Can that be done for us? And sometimes after you've been with them a certain amount of time, they'll do that for free. So I'd be wanting to take a look at that and have some conversations about that. Understanding the city organizational structure, lots of boards and commissions, and to get a handle on that sort of thing. Who's in the statutorily required positions, treasurer, collector, things like that. City attorney, I know Joe. I've known Joe for a number of years. I know Todd. I've met him again yesterday, but I've talked to him on the phone on different things when I was with another community. So review, establish written policy and procedures purchasing, the building codes, what edition of the International Building Code we're on, other approved policies in the city. Current litigation is to talk to the the legal counsel to get an understanding of what current and recent litigation there has been going on, where we are with any workers' comp claims, tort claims, and the history and where we are. I was just talking to Matt a little bit of who the risk pool, MOPERM, is who you guys work with for the insurance of the risk pool coverage. And then who's the judge, court, Todd, I know, is the prosecutor. The other thing I think is important is to talk about landmines and quicksand, is that I know that sometimes those things, what are hot button issues that you want to steer away from? What are hot button landmines that if you just casually mention it, you're going to make some people mad in the community and stuff like that. I know that a few years ago, one city, a friend of mine went to as a city manager, and he mentioned the possibility of the fire department taking on EMT responsibilities. Boom. Just all of a sudden, he's just like, I had a firestorm on his hands and stuff, because that had been an issue just a few years before him. So having that sort of thing, having you guys as resources and staff resources to talk about those things help me avoid those type of issues. Contracts, agreements, external contracts, making sure I'm reviewing those, looking over those and reading those. Any between intergovernmental, between the county or the city, any nonprofit, any service agreements, equipment, facility, as far as purchases, debt service, employment services like school resource officers, there's agreement with the school district. So, and I will say is that it bears mentioning is that any questions that I have, if I have questions or concerns, automatically all of that, whether this or anything that I talk about in the education and research phase here, is that have the conversations with staff, have conversations with you guys to get perspectives that I need to be aware of and stuff. I wouldn't work towards addressing any of that without keeping you guys in the loop or asking a lot of questions and advice and getting perspectives from all of you. Financial picture, last several years, audits, budgets, revenue and expense reports, the actuals, so looking at that kind of stuff. Revenue sources, doing a deep dive and looking at property taxes, sales taxes, is there anything sunsetting, utility rates, fees for services, dates of last revision, when were they, when is it, what's the history there? A lot of that kind of stuff sometimes gets lost in the shuffle and we forget about them. And so making sure that, one thing, I'll give you an example, is that we were, here's what we were charging, the city of Aurora was charging a certain amount, say $100 for a tap fee for a sewer tap. That didn't even cover the cost of the equipment. And so by the time you add in getting the backhoe out there and the gas and then staff time and all of that type of stuff, is that all of those, we weren't even beginning to cover the fees for that. So we took a look at all of our fees and started making adjustments slowly on some of that stuff. What was that?
Oh, 9 minutes.
9 minutes. Man, 40 minutes goes back faster than you think it does. So the other thing is, one thing that kind of popped up with the discussion was current property liens in the county. Any property that blight abatement or anything like that that has been done by the city, taking a look at those type of stuff. And we use some different strategies with the city of Aurora to address some of those. Grants, anything that's currently underway, ARPA funds remaining, any uncollected debt. If you have utilities and things like that, you're going to have them and stuff. So taking a look at that, making sure that you guys are aware of that and getting some advice and some direction how you want to, if it's not being addressed, how you would like it to be addressed. Capital projects underway. just a review of facility master plans, the comprehensive plan, any of that type of stuff that the city is currently operating on. Technology assessment, look at the website, data information, traffic information, user interaction data, things like that. I had some ease of use for citizens. Lots of information there, lots and lots of information there. But I kind of think of it as looking at some of it, and it's like, wow, some of this is a lot to read. Are people doing that and stuff like that? So I'd want to take a look at that. Enterprise software, I know that there's been a move to Tyler Technologies and stuff, and so some of that is already underway. Employment items, collective bargaining, personnel policies, FMLA status, anyone, employee evaluations and stuff. And I'm not even saying that all of these things, all these things are things that I want to change. I don't know that. I don't know that that is, but I think it's incumbent on me to go and take a look at all of these things. Intergovernmental relationships, I know that there's had some discussions about some of this yesterday with you a little bit and everything. So looking at some of those, and again, that comes back to avoiding some landmines and some things for me to be aware of. That's just, I don't necessarily know and want to find out. And then there's like a lot of other groups in the community and stakeholders that I think it's important that the city has relationships with for me to work on. So a lot of that is that develop and initiate is also kind of review the capital improvement plan, the items that are listed on that. Do we need to update it? Infrastructure and facilities assessment is that looking at a few of those things. A lot of that is kind of still underway, but is there other things that we need to take a look at? The fleet plan. And then also, Matt and I had a good discussion about the strategic planning sessions and what the discussions of how that goes. So getting my head wrapped around some of those things. So the last thing I would say is council and staff and community engagement. Meet with council members. I've done that a lot already. Continue to do that tomorrow. So, but I think be a little different as far as the formality of an interview, changing it where I can ask some questions, hear perspectives, here's what you guys are concerned about, and have that same type of meeting with the department heads individually. What are they worried about? What are the things that they've seen that they are wanting to, that they're worried about, or things that they want to be working towards, and that type of thing. And then also with the community. I would hope to maybe have a meet and greet with the community and staff, something that the council and staff where we could meet and meet a lot of different people in the community. Instead of waiting for the opportunity, have something that I could meet a lot of groups and that sort of thing. So the goal is just to actively listen with some of that and help me learn and to begin to build those strong open lines of communication that I'm going to need to be successful. Year 3, I think about that as 24 months from now. How much time do I got, Shannon?
Yep, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Year 3, so we're talking 24 months from now. A lot of the same thing. Comprehensive plan was last updated in 2020. So we're talking 2028. It's going to be about time to revise it again, start looking at a revision again, getting ready for that. Make sure that we're staying on top of annual strategic updates, the capital improvement plan. Work towards a community feedback, whether that's a community survey that goes out. Some of those things that we're, again, promoting the idea of participatory opportunities within the community and stuff like that. Working with location analytics is that there's different programs out there that will help us get a lot of information about. We know that a lot of sales tax comes from outside of the corporate city limits. A lot of people come into our town community. Is that location analytics? The city of Aurora was engaged that, and we were finding out estimates is that approximately 30% of our sales tax was generated comes from outside of the city limits. We were finding out how far away people were traveling to go to our Walmart and things like that. And so whether you think you're being tracked or not, whether you think, no, I'm not being tracked by my cell phone, you are. All of that data is available and available to the public, and there's organizations that take a look at it, and they don't give you specific, as John Holmes is going to Walmart, but they take the aggregate and they show that type of stuff. But looking to utilize technology to help the organization be more efficient, effective, and responsive to the community. Third year, I want to be fully up to speed on the organization and the community. So 24 months from now, establishing positive and collaborative working relationships, establishing trust, and continue the momentum. The mayor asked me yesterday, what was my takeaway? And I would say momentum. A lot of good things are happening within the community, and there's a lot of momentum. Year 5 is one thing that has jumped out very quickly here, is that net migration is people are moving out of urban areas and they're moving back into more non-urban areas. Not necessarily rural, but non-urban areas. People are moving out of big communities like Lee Summit or Kansas City Metro out into areas, bigger communities, and I think that's for a number of reasons, and we kind of see what is happening with the Sedalia population since about a low of about 1990. It's been kind of trickling up, but it's interesting to know that Pettis County has grown by 1.3% from 2020 to 2022. And what that means for the city of Sedalia is that it went up about a little over 0.25%. A quarter, so not 0.5%, but 0.25%. And that's only 2 years. And so that data is a few years old now, but from the current estimates are right around 22,000, almost 22.5 from 21,725. That seems small, but again, that's only over 2 years. So I think that is significant. I would also say during that time period, we're also thinking about what is happening in the world around us, the America around us. Whether we love it or like it, whether we like the politics or not of the last administration or this administration, is that the way the border was handled, we are changing demographics. Things are changing, and whether that will ever go back, I don't know. But people are, I think, going into those communities, and they're like, yeah, we don't like it here, and moving out into our type of Sedalia and Aurora and things like that. Because, and I think that's also a little bit is the amenities or quality of life things that they could get in bigger communities. Now they're seeing it, hey, they got walking trails in Sedalia. They have a great recreation center in Sedalia. I want to move there because they have all the things I want and a lot of the things that I don't want. Crime and people and traffic, and all right, there's some traffic, but a lot of those type of things. The last thing that I kind of want to share with you is the community responsibilities or what it takes to make people love a community. If you've been to the MML conferences, you might have seen this a few years ago. Peter Kaganyama wrote a book called For the Love of Cities, the love affair between people and their places. And I always like this because this is the key items. And the thing that I look at the most is functional and safe, is that a community has to be functional, is that the roads have to be passable, the trash needs to be picked up, the water needs to come out of the sink, the toilets need to flush, all of those type of things, garbage needs to be picked up, those type of things, it just makes it functional and safe. Again, crime is addressed. Crime and law enforcement is a vital part. When you take a look at those things, safe and functional, that's 100% on us, 100%. And then everything above that, we can be a part of it. But making those two things, nothing else is going to matter if we as a group, as a leaders of the organization are not making the community functional and safe. Everything else comes after that. And we start looking at comfortable and convivial, engaging, and then fun. There's so many other groups that fall into that we assist. Chambers of Commerce, civic groups, downtown group, all of those type of things. So fifth year items is, and I kind of talked about that, preparing for growth, preparing for changing demographics, changing economy. All of those things may be ahead in the city of Sedalia's future. And so I want to make sure that I'm working with the council to be ahead of the curve and to making sure that we're working to ensure those foundational responsibilities are safe, and then working where we can to make it a great community. So I think that is all I got.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you.
Up next, we will welcome Mr. Matthew Wirt. Welcome to Council Chambers, Mr. Wirt. You have the floor.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, welcome, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity and the time to put this presentation and present to everyone tonight. I'm honored to share my vision for the Sedalia's future. I'll tell you, it's a plan rooted in experience and driven by action. Although in law enforcement, I'm not used to standing up here and talking about myself, and it's a little bit difficult to do, but I'll do my best. First, I want to share three key things. I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am, what I stand for, and where I believe Sedalia can go. This vision is supported by a structured plan with 1, 3, and 5-year goals, and then I'll do a closing. This plan is a plan of action. It's not of theory. It is what Sedalia needs now and for the future. It's grounded in what I see as action and the plans that we can have, with also a little bit of my experiences as I've gone along. So I thought I'd tell a little bit about myself, because a lot of folks know of what I've done in the past, but I'm not always one to talk about anything outside of work especially. So I'm a lifelong Pettis County resident. My family came here, my parents came to the Sedalia area in the early 1970s. My dad got a job at Rival. He was a buyer. He bought everything there was to go into a Rival crock pot. And one of my memories that I have of him that you're going to see come up in this presentation is we'd go through Walmart or any store, and he would turn over a Rival crock pot, and he would show me the tag that said Sedalia, Missouri. And I don't remember, it maybe said made in Sedalia. But he was always very proud of that and proud of things made in the United States. I have a small farm. I raise hay for horses and small animals. I love farming. That's my happy place. As you can see from the center picture that's me out raking hay on one of the old tractors that I have and keep going. When I was raised in my childhood, I spent that time with my dad. We didn't have a lot of money, so he made me work on everything we had. We fixed everything we had. We did everything that was mechanical and carpentry related. And so then I grew up working on cattle farms and doing construction and working with him. I've built 3 houses. He and I built a couple of houses together. So hard work is all I've really ever known. When it comes to my family, I'm married. I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 25 years. And I am one of those people that is the exact, every good man, there is a good woman behind them. That is me. My wife is a wonderful woman and a mother. I have 2 great kids, 11 and 19, and I have 3 dogs. I'm a dog person. Those are my 2 German Shepherds in the back of the UTV, and I always joke the little dog is driving him around. If you see me on Monday morning, you might see me trying to still get the grease off my hands from working on everything all weekend, because that's a lot of times what I do. I still kind of have that from the old song, Dirty Hands and a Clean Soul. That's kind of a rite of passage in my family. Also, my experience comes within the police department and the city. I've been here for 25 years. A lot of you know that. I still continue to be a police officer. I was the chief of police for just under 6 years. I have a bachelor's degree. I also attended command school at Northwestern University, which is a pretty prestigious command school in Evanston, Illinois. I've also been graduated from the West Point Leadership Academy that was taught at the police department, and I have quite a bit of law enforcement training. My values are my faith, my family, my community, agriculture, and hard work. Of course, all of those echo in this community in central Missouri. Some of my hobbies and the person I am outside of here, I've talked a little bit about farming. One of my most favorite things is to share motorcycle riding. I've been riding a motorcycle for 37 years. I've ridden a lot of cross country. We prefer not even getting on the highway. I'm talking gravel roads, forest roads, things like that. And that's me outside of here. And I've got an old picture of back in the day when I was skinny and young there. So what does Sedalia mean to me? You know, this is my home and I care about it. And that's why I'm doing that, just as all of you care about the community. I want to see success for our residents, for our children, for our city. I'm not here because of the career. Instead, I see my career as a calling. This is my life's work. So as I was a police officer and as I was going up through law enforcement, you know, of course, I started to do it to help people, and I wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to make a difference in the community. And as I worked up through being a police officer and became a commander, went to command school, started learning about problem-oriented policing, if you guys remember that from when I was police chief, and wanting to solve problems, I realized that you can't arrest your way out of any situation, and that you have got to work on it from a total aspect. So it takes all the city departments, it takes the entire city to solve problems. If we have a problem in a neighborhood, the police department can work with the crime problem. The code enforcement and the building department can work on the issues with rundown houses and things like that. You know, water department can make sure that the water mains are right. You see how all this total package to make a difference. So, you know, at this point, I say all that so that this is me moving on to my life's next mission, my life's next chapter, to continue on with that work. I want to continue that service to my community and make this a thriving place where everyone can live happy and productive life. My background and experience, as I said, I spent my career in public service on the front lines of law enforcement and ultimately in leadership, both at the police department and now in city administration. I've handled everything from routine patrols to complex investigations. I've investigated homicides that took years and had weeks where I was in trial, large-scale financial crimes that involved hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars. And some of them, yes, were even with public officials. I've testified in state and federal court successfully. I've had to face tough decisions and complicated situations, and I've remained grounded in integrity. I've built and managed the department budget at the police department for 8 years. I've learning that process inside and out, and then also as my time in city administration. As the chief, I had the responsibility of leading an organization through some of the most turbulent times in recent history. Everybody remembers 2020 with COVID and all the things that happened locally with civil unrest and the challenges that those brought to our community. I've also had to leave officers into dangerous situations involving active gunfire and even explosives, where every decision that I made carried real, immediate consequences. And I will say that changes your life and changes how you think about things and how your thought process goes through in life and gives you a lot of perspective. In the last 18 months, I've focused on building a team that does not just talk about improvements, but we deliver it. We bring progress and we make things happen. We've brought a lot of projects to life this year and got them contracted and got them on the schedule to keep moving. I believe all of this is what builds trust, and this same kind of leadership I will bring forward as city administrator, as someone who never stopped caring about the future of this community. I apologize, I always get a dry mouth when I talk. Whether I'm wearing a badge or sitting in a budget meeting, my focus has always been the same: serve with integrity, lead with vision, and build what lasts. This is my leadership philosophy, and I'll tell you just a quick story on that poster. When we had the man come in to teach the West Point Leadership Model Academy at the police department, he came in and he saw that sign. That same sign hangs in the police department training room. And he said, "Did you read the material? And is that why did you put the sign up? Because you've read ahead." And I said, "No, that we put that up when we moved in the police department." He said, "That's in the first week of training. We're going to talk about that poster." Because it's a big part of what you do in law enforcement, but it's what I see as a big part of how we lead and how we are government and what people expect from us. So the truth of the matter is, you always know what the right thing is to do. The hard part's doing it, of course. So these are points that I always tell folks that work for me. Always do the right thing, even when no one is watching. Honesty is that refusal to lie. It's the integrity to be so trustworthy that you just can't lie. And that's is our responsibility in government, and it's something that I feel very pledged to. I also feel with the employees and the staff and myself, and I know this is one of the hardest ones up there to do, is to always be kind and support each other and work as a team. Don't waste time tearing each other down. You know, in a world that we can feel dark with negativity, where headlines divide and social media thrives on outrage, it's easy to be the critic. Easy to point fingers, to complain, to tear others down, but the easy road rarely leads to anything good. What's harder, but far more meaningful, is to be the light. I tell them to be the one that leads with integrity, even when no one's watching. Be the one who lifts others up instead of standing on their shoulders. The light doesn't shine, it shows others the way. It builds, it heals, it leads, because we weren't made to chase attention. We were made to serve, to build, to leave things better than we found them. I also tell them, when facing tough decisions, ask yourself 3 questions. Is it illegal? Is it unethical? Is it immoral? If you question any of those, go back to number 1. Always do the right thing. Then also live your life for others, not for yourself. 25 years in public service, I'm living my life for others. And I'm proud of that, because gratitude is a powerful virtue. The more you serve others, the more meaningful and joyful your life becomes. And then also, we work for the community, not ourselves. Our success is measured by whether we build a city where families can thrive. That's our mission. That's the reason why. That's the reason why we get up every morning and do what we do. So that's a little bit about me, my philosophy, why I'm here, and why I'm ready to do this job. Now I'm going to move on to my strategic goals, for 1, 3, and 5 years. So you'll notice as I go along, you'll see a year 1 to the right, up and down each presentation, and I'll remind you each time we transition from 1, 3, and 5. What you'll see here is on the right is the 5 categories that I've established with that to break down. I like categories, I like bullet points, I like to have those things so that you can see that vision and how they tie together with the title. So there's infrastructure and growth readiness, economic development and regional growth, digital and operational modernization, leadership and development, and state sustainability and livability. So infrastructure and growth readiness. We all know that we've got issues with our sewer plant, and that we need to finalize that plan and address the infill flow and infiltration issues. So within that first year, I want to finish the design, get the contract, and break ground on sewer plant upgrades. That needs to, for our time schedule to meet our AOC, that needs to get done. That needs to be going. We also need to do a conditional assessment on the southeast plant to maintain compliance and plan for future growth. As we continue to see more growth in Sedalia, that southeast plant and expanding it is going to become more and more important, and also to keep it in compliance. So we need to think about that for the future. We also need to get the Washington Street Bridge repaired and open to the public for use. That's important to all of us, and I want that done in that first year. In addition, I also want to contract a feasibility study to determine the best location and cost for a replacement. When we look at and we throw out ideas for a replacement for Washington Street Bridge, we need a lot more information. We need to know and identify the most strategic and cost-effective location. We need to consider the current projected traffic flows. We need to analyze the total cost, construction cost and impact of future development. And also we've got to evaluate it from the railroad standpoint. We aren't going to be able to get any grants or any additional funding without having all these questions answered and a plan in place when we apply. So it brings about putting us in the right position to make decisions and informed and data-driven decisions. The next thing is to begin our 5-year street improvement plan or a 5-year street improvement plan. You know, we've just purchased the macro paver, so I want to capitalize on that FY26 street rehabilitation plan. I want to take the roadway asset survey. I want to take that, their recommendations, our budget, and then traffic counts and look at how we can put that together and get it done as quick as possible. It may take up to 5 years. It's going to depend on our budgeting is really what it's going to depend on, what we can afford to put in each year. And then finally complete those key sidewalk projects like the North Central Sidewalk project that we hope to start this coming month, the CDBG, which is a sidewalk curb project over between 4th and 5th, Emmett and New York, and then the 3rd Street bike path between Liberty Park and the Katy Depot. I want to position Sedalia as a regional economic hub with workforce housing. So we are fortunate to have negative retail leakage, which means there are more people coming to Sedalia to purchase items than there are going out. That's a great, not a problem to have, but it's a great thing to have. So we want to continue that and build our retail sales. We also want to work with economic development, both locally and state, to bring more industry and jobs to Sedalia. One way that we can also do that is to determine a location that will meet the needs of our industrial community with a transload facility. You know, we have the rail spur that we own. It's a great opportunity. There's a lot of land next to it that we've talked about, and it's future plans, but we really need to put that plan into motion to getting something like a transload facility going to support the local industrial community and then attract new tenants to it. That's, you know, supporting those local industries with the growth. That's a great thing to do, and it's making use of that rail spur that we spent quite a bit of money to develop. Also create a retail development strategy to attract and retain our businesses. So of course we always want to retain the businesses we have, but we also want to attract new ones. We also want to launch affordable housing redevelopment planning. We've already started on this, but to continue to those efforts with the infill housing. And then we all know there's a lot of different areas in Sedalia that are ripe for development where there's water and sewer nearby that we could capitalize on for growth with housing on all different levels. Also, I can't go without saying we need to evaluate tariff impacts and how that might change our local taxes and be cognizant and watch it as we move through. The next category, digital and operational modernization. So a complete ERP implementation, we would get in the first year, we would have that main portion of it done. There would probably still be some of the other modules that would still need to be done, but I want that all across city departments to improve efficiencies and build workflow that helps improve services. I came from the law enforcement world where everything was documented. I could go to a system and I could look up all kinds of information and I could get data from it. We struggle with that with our current system, and we've already approved the ERP system through council and a contract, but when we build that, I have some specific goals with it that I'd like to accomplish with it, and those are specifically to help with the improving of our workflow and improving accountability. I'd also like to use it that during that installation and that build, which is part of the plan, but I really want that to be a focus to provide that access to our community and our customers with utility billing, also permits and information where you can imagine you can get out your phone, you can pay your water bill, you can apply for a permit, you can get information. And then also work for an archive to provide easy access to past information such as council meeting minutes and things like that. So it's a searchable format where people can easily find those documents. Then also begin drafting a long-range transportation plan. With the way that we are growing, we've got to look at long-term planning towards our transportation. We can leverage the SS4A, the Safe Streets for All funding, and then there's many other different types of funding sources that we can work with to build safer streets. You know, from the accident and the safety standpoint, we need to look at it, but also from the growth standpoint. Also, work with county and state officials. I spoke with the commission just a week or so ago in the interest of us all working together to make a county-wide transportation plan so that when road development and growth happens, we can coincide that growth so we're not misaligning streets or planning some sort of heavy traffic that might come in on a city street that's not prepared to handle it. But work together on that transportation plan. We are already in a good position with having completed our SS4A study to move forward with some of those things, and we'll look at those intersections in Sedalia that are unsafe that need improvements with our current funding. But I think that's a great goal to reach. From the leadership and internal development standpoint, want to launch department-specific goals. Each department should set their own goals, and those goals should coincide with our city goals and things that we want to accomplish. And also some equipment replacement schedules. We have been battling the cost to repair equipment, and we need to find a balance between that replacement and repairs, a better balance. We all know that we struggled with snowplows, for example, this winter and them breaking down. So keeping that replacement plan in a right order. Then I want to start an initial leadership training across all departments. So I've already spoke a little bit about West Point leadership, but I would like to implement something similar to what I did at the police department, where it starts with our department heads, and they go through training sessions that really work at building leadership from the top down, create opportunities for joint leadership through these trainings, so it instills the core values, teaches effective leadership skills, and fosters ownership and buy-in across the departments. It's emphasized the importance of learning and growing together as a team. It builds the team. So we started at the top and get that buy-in and that development through that group. And I'll talk more about this as how we would develop and grow that as I go through the plan. But it's valuable training and knowledge, and I saw the changes and the ability that it made within the police department to build a thriving team culture with succession planning. Succession planning is also, you're equipping your current supervisors with the training and the knowledge they need to lead their departments, but you work to inspire leadership at all levels through this. So you're starting at the top, but you're going to work down through all levels of the staff, all the way down to your first line supervisors to grow, to get them to take initiative and learn how to become effective future leaders. Sustainability and livability. So we've already brought to you a resolution to apply for a grant to grind our glass. So imagine that we increase that amount of glass that's coming into us. We grind it into fine sand. And I've talked internally with our great staff, and we've talked about using that sand, and it was mentioned in the memo, in our asphalt to reduce cost and also build momentum for our recycling program. So I would like to also take what we learned from that glass recycling and apply it onto plastics and cardboards. We want to reduce landfill cost, and the best way to reduce landfill cost is to reduce how much goes to the landfill. Also, we want to give our opportunity to our citizens to reduce the cost that they pay for trash. It's by reducing landfill costs and giving them an alternative to recycle. Kind of with that, let me tell you a little kind of story that I have with that coincides with something I've already brought up, is that I have a dream that one day we'll once again walk into stores and see products proudly labeled made in Sedalia, just like I talked about with my dad, seeing that rival crock pot pointing out the Sedalia tag. It represented local jobs, quality, and pride in our community. I want to see the pride return. I believe we have an opportunity to support that dream by encouraging the use of recycled materials to spark local innovation in industry. Just as we're working to incorporate recycled glass into our asphalt mixture, we should look for new ways to repurpose other materials, turning them into products that can carry "Made in Sedalia" tag on them as well. It's about building a stronger local economy, supporting sustainability, and creating something we can all be proud of. Okay, so that was year 1, and now we're going to move on to year 3. Again, with the same categories and the same information, just an update on where we would be. Please, as you go through this, realize that there's a big jump between year 1 and year 3. So things could be finished in year 2, things could be accelerated, or they may go longer, depending again on funding levels as we experience those things on the year. But this is a pivotal stage where planning shifts into large-scale execution. Some of the things have been completed, some of the things have been planned, and now is starting the execution of those plans. So from the infrastructure and growth side, we're seeing that sewer upgrade construction. It would need to be underway and really going, and we're reducing that I&I, which helps the sewer plant. And I never thought I'd be standing up here at a presentation talking about a sewer plant and how important it is. But I have learned without water and sewer, we can't grow and we can't go. Major corridors, I need a dad joke every now and again. Major corridors and road segments are also rehabilitated at this point, improving traffic flow and safety. Most city streets have been resurfaced and again aligned with that 5-year plan. So we're trying to cover as much roadway as we can afford each year through this plan. I would like to see us have that transportation plan I spoke about at a level of completion. Again, with grants that I have done in the past, is we need that plan in place. That's what's going to get those external funding sources. You know, when you just bring in a dream as opposed to I've got a plan and I've got something engineered, we're much more likely to get that grant or that funding. And then service planning for future growth zones ensure our infrastructure is keeping pace with development. You're going to hear me mention it several times in this. We have to keep infrastructure, has to keep up with retail, has to keep up with economic development, and it has to keep up with housing. They can't get out of balance, or we're going to, our revenues are going to get out of balance. We also need in this year 3 to start repairing and replacing aging water sewer lines. We've already started some of that, but it's very important that we keep that going because we all know that we experience backups and breaks. So it's important to look at those as we go along. We also would need to consider our public safety as we go along and make sure that they grow and that they match the community, that they are in the locations that they need to be as we move forward. Again, in year 3, on the economic development and growth side, our affordable housing, I would hope at this point, we've got construction in progress. It's supported by targeted city incentives, which we have a lot of those incentives already in place. We've already got that hurdle done, like with the Redevelopment Corporation and with some of the developments that are already started. So we want to push on that and do our best to help incentivize and get those going. I'd like to see us develop retail development strategies, that improves our tenant outreach and continue that again, that growth matching our housing and our economic development. We also need to start looking at the comprehensive plan again and updating it, looking with our land use, our zoning, and our growth as we go through those. You know, those provide a long-term vision. They guide smart, orderly growth. They strengthen our infrastructure and our investment planning, and they are what really come together as a community to boost our economic development and even our grant opportunities. So we would be revisiting that and really delving into that to make sure it aligns with our plan. You know, each one of those plans, they've got to develop as we change. We can't just stick to one long term. It's going to have to develop as we move forward. On the digital and operational increases, that ERP system at this point would be fully integrated with finance, permitting, and public engagement platforms. I want it up and running and streamlined, and that our digital services are also streamlined so those things I was talking about are accessible and that people can engage with City Hall easier. For example, like with a business license, I want to renew my business license. I pull out my phone, I renew my business license, and through that system. And then our department equipment replacement plans, they're active. It's got our improving services and reliability. We all know that sometimes we have to say, unfortunately, trash can't run today. Something can't happen today because we've got equipment breakdowns. And then we're also using that data to strategically inform people of decisions. We're also using it to track our performance and increase our efficiencies, our transparencies as well. We're on the second phase of the leadership training point when we reach leadership and internal development in year 3, equipping more staff with the skills to lead and adapt. That team culture is now empowered and aligned with the shared goals across the departments. So, and I will say the department staff that we have, again, this is one place where I can say I've worked here for over 25 years. I've never seen a department staff that is as cohesive and as strong as it is right now. We are in a really good spot with the people that work and run the departments within the city, and I'm very proud of them. And they're working towards this, but we can all grow. I'm a prime example of that. I will stand here and tell you, I need to get better. I will always say that every day. I always need to improve. But with succession planning active, it's ensuring leadership's continuity and career growth. The planning and the growth allows that we're building the culture within the departments at all the levels at this point. So, if I know that the culture is, I want to be a first line supervisor, I need to reach certain achievements to do that. And as that, I am able to match, I guess, in a sense, the goals and the desires of the entire city. So department goals are being met with cross-functional collaboration. So everybody is on the same page, right, at this point when it comes to leadership and what should be done. All our staff and our employees know the expectations and the needs at that point. Happy employees want to know their expectations every day. On the sustainability and livability, our local end-use partners for recyclables, they're launched. So at this point, we hope we're reducing waste and supporting local economic loops. I would like to see plastics increasing their role in the program. A lot of times we see when the economy changes, the need or whatever is the market for recycling products. But what if those are at the end use here in Sedalia? The glass recycling program would be fully active and that we're having a cost savings with that. Growth planning emphasizes this long-term sustainability, and I use sustainability in this situation with, again, that balancing of infrastructure, its capacity, the service that we deliver, and our growth. And then we would have the revised comprehensive plan that's reinforcing not only the livability, but hopefully supporting walkability as we've moved towards more sidewalks and path, that we continue down that path. We will help make a healthier community with that, but also housing variety. So we've got affordable housing, that mid-range and that upper range, so that anybody that comes to Sedalia can hopefully find a house that they can afford. And then, of course, accessible public services. I would like to mention this would be the point where we would hopefully have our drop-off locations at this point in the recycling program to maybe start looking at or revisiting single stream, but I wouldn't make that leap in the presentation to say that for certain. On year 5, again, we're going to go through these categories. At this point, we've laid that strong foundation. We hope to have seen growth, results, and alignment. Let's look further ahead at efforts that converge into long-term outcomes. So again, starting off with the first category of infrastructure and growth readiness, all major street rehabilitation projects I would hope would be completed. Then we've moved into a more aggressive preventative maintenance program, and that it's fully implemented. So we would be sealing some of those streets maybe in year 3 to 5 after we've paved them to get that extra 5-7 years out of them. We would hope that the sewer upgrade would be completely done and operational, and that we've reduced that inflow and infiltration. Our water and stormwater, we would need to see those capacities increased for long-term residential and industrial needs. We're going to have to look at our ability to produce more water. That's a good problem to have, but it is something we need to keep on the radar. Our transportation projects, we would hope that we would be starting on a lot of these and they would be funded by grants and regional partnerships, and that we would have those future development zones pre-engineered and ready to go with parcels. What I'm talking about there is, for example, what we've done sometimes in the past with industrial parks and different areas where you have the infrastructure there close by that makes those, in a sense, almost they're development ready for people to come in and move. We also have visible, sustained growth in neighborhoods, jobs, and our retail hubs. I'd like to see us at this point, we're a regional leader in logistics and manufacturing with that transload facility operational. When people can buy things by rail cars and then put them on a truck and do that last few miles, they can experience some savings, especially our local manufacturers and industry. Continued expansion of affordable and workforce housing. I'd also like to see public and private partnerships that strengthen our local investment and incentivize targeted redevelopment. We work on these on a small scale now, and we want to continue those, and then maybe we would have the opportunity to look at bigger ones, but it's important to keep those going because, you know, those public-private partnerships can bring a lot of resources to the table. I would like to see us at this point recognized as the statewide as pro-business and pro-growth community, that people are talking about Sedalia, and I think they already are. Don't get me wrong. I want to see that we kind of hold the accelerator pedal down on that and don't hit the brake and keep it moving. Our digital and operational modernization, you know, we're hopefully fully paperless, cloud-based systems across finance. There's real-time citizen service dashboards, so citizens can look on a dashboard, find their information, and know what's going on. Technology is embedded in our daily operations and our maintenance. We've got data-driven budgeting and strategic performance standards across all departments. We've got that leadership pipeline. This is under the leadership category. It's established. Your department heads, your mid-level supervisors, and your emerging leaders are all supported through tiered development tracks. We're retaining our people because we care about our people, and we're training them, and they have buy-in in this thing, and they're working for that goal in the community. And we've eliminated any silos within our city that have slowed down progress. And employees clearly understand organizational mission, strategic goals, and their role in achieving them. On the sustainability and the livability side, you know, that glass, plastic, and cardboard, they're operational, and hopefully we've got local in-use markets. I'd like to see our community livability improve through walkable neighborhoods and investments with our bike paths and our sidewalks. We've got the comprehensive plan completely updated and built around desired growth at this point and long-range capital planning. I would like to see at this point that we've made our improvements to our city services, that they are rated high in public satisfaction surveys, strong alignment between citizen priorities and city performance, that we have focused on our core services. We've made improvements to those, and people in our community are happy with them. And our growth is balanced and fiscally stable. So in year one, we laid the foundation. We modernized our systems, we empowered our leaders, and we prepared our infrastructure. Year three, our momentum's real. We're getting our streets rebuilt, our housing's constructed, our retail's expanding, and our team internally is moving in sync. Year five, we don't just see the results, we feel them. We're stronger, the neighborhoods are stronger, we're providing better services, and City Hall reflects the best of who we are as a city. This is the moment. Every challenge is an invitation to rise. Every plan we build, every street we repair, every home we help create, it's not just a project, it's a piece of Sedalia's future. As a community, we've proven what happens when we face challenges head on, with grit, with teamwork, and with a clear vision. We succeed. So, kind of in closing, if you see, this is an old brick street. Off in the distance, you see wagons and horses, and you clearly see these guys standing in the hot sun, probably taking a break to take this picture. So I saw this picture and I thought of all the brick roads that are still under a lot of our asphalt, right? So I wrote this in thinking of that and thinking of a closing. As I think about Sedalia's old brick streets that lie under much of the asphalt in town, I cannot help but reflect on the immense time, effort, grit, and pride it took to build them. I imagine the men who dug the earth by hand, the workers who stood over hot kilns to fire each brick, the teams of horses and wagons that hauled them to town, and the crews who laid them one by one, often in the hot sun. Each brick wasn't just placed, it was earned through labor, sweat, and a shared belief in building something that would last. These streets still carry us today. I also think about my dad, how he once held up a rival crock pot with pride, not because of what it did, but because of what it said, made in Sedalia. To him, that tag represented craftsmanship, hard work, and pride in our people. That simple label said everything about who we were and what we were capable of. That's the kind of legacy that I want to help carry forward, one rooted in community, built by hands willing to serve others, and designed to stand the test of time. As I close, remember to live with purpose, serve with gratitude, and build a life that lifts others long after you are gone. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for this opportunity.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ward. We're now going to go ahead and stand in recess for 5 minutes. I'd allow anyone to use the restroom that needs to. And now we'll welcome Mr. Stephen Rasmussen. Welcome to council chambers, Mr. Rasmussen. You have the floor.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to come here, and I'm last, and so I'll try to be short because we got time to get out of here. My wife told me when you give a presentation, she said, I want to tell you three things. Do three things. Number one, start out with attention-getting introduction. Okay. Number two, end with a memorable conclusion. And number three, keep these first two things very close together. So I'm going to try to do that. And I remember when we had a presentation by a state representative in previous city, and she came and had a great presentation, but she had it all on the slides, and the slides didn't work. And she didn't have any paper copies, and so just winged it. And so it worked out pretty good, but she didn't have it, and you never know when that might go bad. So what I want to do, I'm going to give you a paper copy of each of this, and then you've got it for you, and you also have something to take notes on. Mr. Robinson?
Thank you.
Okay, and nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Mr. Scribner, thank you so much. Good to see you again. And I don't think we've met yet.
Not yet.
Tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Good to meet you. Mayor,
All right.
thank you very much for having me again. All right, Bob, we talked this morning. Great. Thank you very much. And Bob, thank you again.
All right.
Okay, great.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. And thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now, you're probably breezing through this a little, and I'll tell you what I've done here. I have not done a great detailed presentation in terms of what goes on in the city because I have only been here for a couple of days, even though I've visited many times in the past. And so what I want to do is I want to mostly talk about what my approach would be. And so what I have here is an outline, and I'll talk about those things, and then you can see what the notes would be. And so what I've done is I've talked about the next 5 years in Sedalia. Now, let's see if that'll work now. Can I have the next slide up? Maybe. Okay, well, you've all got on your paper. Okay, and so that's the first year. And what I want to do is talk about this first year in some detail, because the first year is the most important because this year sets the stage of things. And so I'm going to talk about the first year a little bit in more detail here. And so here is what I start out with is the next slide is hit the deck running. But I'll remind you of Newton's third law of quotations, and that is for every quotation there's an equal and opposite quotation. And the opposite quotation for this is fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So what I would tell you is I'd like to hit the deck running, but what I want to do is I want to take some time to look at the goals that you've got set, look at how things are going in the city, and meet the staff, get to know all of you, meet people in the community, and then when we know exactly where we want to do it, then I can move forward aggressively, but I don't want to come in the first day and say we want to do this or that or the other thing and it be wrong. We want to make sure that it's right. So I want to hit the deck running, but I want to make sure I go through and look at those things that we have to do. And I think the most important thing for that is the strategic goals. I got a copy of your strategic goals from the city clerk here a month or so ago, and I looked through that, and that was your January 11th session. And that was a great session and in great detail because it had 8 pages and was very thorough. But I did like the last page where it had the project rankings, and it showed the things in there that were the highest priorities. And that is kind of the way you have to do a budget, because you look at a budget and you say, well, you know, you've got a lot more things that you want to do than you've got time to do, so you have to rank those. And so you rank those by putting them in the list. And I always go back to the staff and like to the public works director, and I say, okay, here are the things we've got to do, and let's rank them by money, by time, by the people, by the skill you've got to do them. And then somewhere you have to draw that line. And so what we do is we look at those, and that strategic planning session you gave gives us a lot to go by. Now, what there were three big issues at the end that I took note of. One was law enforcement personnel, two was transportation vehicles, and three was roads and sidewalks, and those are always big issues. I'll go back and talk about law enforcement personnel a little bit. That is a problem throughout the state. It's a problem in the city that I have currently at, and it's a problem because I don't say this because I'm trying to be negative or anything, but the firemen are the good guys and the policemen are the bad guys. You know, the firemen come in and rescue you out of a burning building, and the police stop you and give you a ticket. So public looks at that, and so it's tough to get those policemen, and in order to get them, you have to pay for them. And cities are stealing them from you because other cities will try to pay more, so you have to raise it to salaries to get those police officers. And then the other city, they have to raise it here, and it just keeps going like that. And it is very, very difficult to get law enforcement personnel today. That's a challenge we've gotten, a challenge which I'd have to deal with right off the bat and keep working on. The other thing in transportation is vehicles. Vehicles are a tremendous expense. And how do you handle that? Well, it's your ranking. You know, you wanted to get 5 vehicles here this year, and you didn't have enough money to do it. So what do? Well, you get 4. And that's what you have to do as you begin to rank those things. And then the last thing on there was roads and sidewalks. And that's a perennial issue everywhere you go. Fix roads and fix sidewalks. It takes money and it never ends. So how much do you want to put in there? Well, you need to put enough money in that so that it continues to be maintained. I think, as I remember, I think you have 150 lane miles or so. That would take, just to maintain it, it would take about $1 million a year for 150 lane miles to just maintain it, not to get any better. So somewhere when you look at the budget, you got to look at how many lane miles, how much to do, and somewhere that has to go over the top, off of the top, or you're getting worse. You got to keep even and try to get better. So that's another big budget item that has to come out of there. So as we look to the strategic goals, I'd look to those things, and those are the things that the staff would have to look for, and I would work with them on it. Now, what you see here is on Hit the Deck Running is I want to look at the next year, and what I'm looking at now is the next year is what comes after that. And so what I'm looking at there is I'm looking what happens next year. I'm looking at a facilitator and cost of that. And the reason I'm doing that is because we look at these strategic goals that came out of your meeting in January 11th. Well, we're halfway through now. You know, people say, what are you going to do in the next 100 days? Well, the next 100 days, we'll be looking at the next strategic planning session. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how I look at strategic goals for another year. One of the things is, who's the facilitator? Do you get a facilitator to do this? Some cities do that, and in some past cities where I've been a city manager, we have done that, and it costs somewhere between $2,000 and $8,000 to have come in. I think I like the way and I think you did that here, is have the city administrator be the facilitator. And the reason for that is the city administrator knows what's going on most and is the one who's going to have to do it. So he usually can best move you through that. And I also then talk about time and date there, and that is if you did it in January, I would recommend that, you know, we do it again and take it up for that next year. And I'm going to talk about taking up those goals for the next year in a minute. Next thing I have there is monthly update, and what I would do is at every council meeting once a month, when you get to a portion for the city manager, I would give you an update on how we have done on the goals that you did for last year, because what that does is that tells you how well we're doing that and what we can do for the next year. I'll come back and mention that again because that's always problematical. Now, as you go through this business of planning for the goals for next year, there's a couple of things. And I wrote down community engagement, businesses, and residents. So as you're getting ready to do that, I would want to go out and get to know all those people and see what the issues are. And for example, one of the things in community engagement, You have that issue here, have that issue in the city I'm at now, you have it always, and that is rundown buildings, houses that need code work on it. And so I would want to see what can you do about that to move forward in codes. About 2 or 3 years ago, we had a program called Dilapidated to New, and we submitted that to the Municipal League in Missouri, and we got first place for innovation there. And I took it to the International City Managers Association meeting, and we got first place on International City Managers Association for that program. And that is how you take down dilapidated buildings, how it doesn't cost the city any money, and the people that have to leave there are happy. That's a win-win-win. And that can be done by putting that kind of a program. And I'd love to bring that in. But that's the kind of thing in community engagement you need to do. What is a community concerned about? And in that issue, you know, there are two sides to that. We want to have code enforcement, we want to fix those things, but there are people out there that say, don't touch my buildings. Big issue. And so I'd like to go out and see community, what are those issues and what are the other issues? Also, you want to talk with the businesses, and I say again, this is one of my favorite stories. When I got to Jefferson City and was a city administrator there, I asked, who should I get to know here in town right off the bat? And they told me, well, you ought to go down and see the guy who runs the Ford dealership. So I went down there, and Mike Kehoe took me out to lunch, and we've been great friends ever since. And 3 months ago, he invited me to the governor's mansion for the inaugurations. So it just goes to show who you need to get to know in the city. And I would like to get to know those people and also like to know the common people. I was at dinner 2 nights ago here in town, and some people knew, I guess, that I was coming for this, and they came up, and boy, did I get a rundown on water and sewer bills. And they said, all we want you to do is just listen to it. And I said, okay, I'm listening. And I got that from them. So you get it from both people. You get to the 2 people at dinner who want to talk about their water and sewer, and you talk to Mike Kehoe. And that's the way you get to know what needs to be done in the city and what things then can be brought back and to the next strategic planning session. Okay, let me go to the next slide there, please. Okay, and this is support the staff, and so I come back to that, and I'll tell you about the staff because that is a critical asset to the city. And what you want to do as a city manager is know them, understand their needs, and support them. And I would say there are probably 3 critical aspects for the city manager. The budget is always one, and we talked about goals and objectives. And HR is one. It's hiring the right people, get the right people in the right job, and it's a continuing, ongoing issue. We talked about police officers, and that is one thing, but there are other positions in there that have to be filled all the time. And so, one of my 3 biggest issues is get the right people in the right job, support them, and when they're done good, praise them. If they haven't done good, you can do a little bit of counseling on there and train them more. So you get those support, get the staff working, because supporting the staff is so important. And it's a question of, it's more a question of leadership probably than management with that. Next thing I want to do is I want to talk about meeting with the mayor and council. And I talk about that when I come under here supporting the staff. One of the things I do is I meet with the city council member every week one-on-one, or maybe 2-on-1 if that works, whatever. And I would hope that you would want to do that too if I'm selected for the position, because what I want to do is come out and let you know exactly what is going on. And when we talk about budget, HR, and goals and objectives, I want you to know about that. Because I don't want you to come in and be surprised and the first time you see something is on a council agenda, you say, what is this? So I like to think that I want to tell the city council 3 times about an issue, not because you need that because you're slow learners or anything, but rather you're doing a lot of other things. You're doing this 1 hour a day, and we're doing it 12 hours a day. So what I want to do is come out on one-on-one, and I want to tell you, here's an issue that's coming up, and here's the facts. Then the next time we get to a council meeting, and we'll get the staff to come back and give you a presentation on this issue. Now you know what we're talking about a little bit, and then you get the presentation. Then when the council packet comes out, you've got it in there, and now you know what the issues, and you have a chance to think about it, talk to each other, and then when it comes to the council meeting and you're ready to vote on it, you know what's going on. I had a council member one time in a previous city said, I don't want to know anything about it until I go into the council meeting, I see it in my packet, and I'll look at it and vote on it. And I thought, what? How can you do that? You want to just be surprised by it? So I want to meet with the mayor and the council so that you're not surprised by anything. Now, I'm not doing that because I'm trying to get you to vote one way or the other. What happens is I'm doing that because I want to make sure that the staff does its job. And the staff's primary job is to make sure we give you the technical details. We give you the technical details, and then you make the political decision. And I will make sure you've got all those technical issues so that you can make the best political decision that you've got. And you do that by giving the best and all of the evidence. And so I do a lot of time meeting with the elected officials. I tell people, how do I spend my time? I spend a third of my time, or half of my time, with elected officials, and I spend a half of my time with the city staff, and I spend half of my time with the public. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm bad at mathematics. What it really means is that's how much time I want to spend working with those three people, so all of those groups know what's going on. Now, I want to talk about absolute goals for a minute as we're talking about this, as we move through, and there are several absolute goals here, and I want to tell you what two of them are. One is public safety, and there's no question about fire and police. Public expects that, and you can't short on that. You know, you may not get that street fixed this year, and it may go next year, but you can't do that with public safety. Another is economic development. If you go out and you ask cities, what are your primary goals? If you just came into any city, what's your first goal? Every time they will tell you economic development. They don't say public safety because that's a given, but they'll say economic development. So you have to work on that all the time, and we have a good staff here to work on that. And I was very pleased to see that you had the new delivery center out there for Amazon. That was great. There's every city in the state would want to do that. I was at Excelsior Springs a couple of years for an economic development seminar, and it turns out that the numbers are about like this. There are 4,000 economic development entities in the country, and they're all working for that Amazon delivery station. And how many do they get out in a year of those? In a state, you get about 5. You've got 4,000 people across the country looking for that, and the state got 5. So that is a hard thing, and you got to make it work. And what are they looking for? Well, you look at what they're looking for, the land, the infrastructure in there, and you've got to provide what they want, because when they come out, they got a checklist too. They're looking for things on the checklist, and you got to know what their checklist is, and you got to have those things provided so you come up high on their list so that you can get those. We're making good progress on that, and I'm glad to see that. And I'm going to add one other thing here then on supporting the staff. I think I'll add 2 things there. One of the things is with the staff, what I do is I delegate authority to the staff to go out and you do what you need to do there, but I don't delegate the responsibility. I retain the responsibility. And if it goes wrong, it's my fault, and I take responsibility for that, and we'll work that. But I will delegate the authority to the staff, and I want them to go out and do that work. You've got total of 14, I think, different department heads. I can't do the work of 14 people. I know 1/14 of what each one of them are doing. They need to go out and do that work. And then I'll meet with them, and they can let me know, and we'll work on that. I'll send them back out there again, and we'll see what happens. And I take responsibility for that. I'm going to add another goal there in terms of supporting the staff. We talked a little about earlier on, and that is code enforcement. I've got a copy of your wiring diagram, your organizational chart from HR, and we have code enforcement, the building inspector is over under the assistant city administrator. I think that is probably important enough and needs a close enough attention. I would probably move that under the city administrator, and that would be a high priority. And you see that all the time because you got the two factions working. You got the one group that says, I don't want those broken down vehicles in the yard next door. Oh, okay, we get that. Then you got the person next door says, those aren't broken down, that's my mother's vehicle, I'm fixing that. Well, that argument goes back and forth again. What is it? Well, sometimes what it does is it takes the main person to go down and talk to. Code enforcement can talk about that, and they argue back and forth, but they'll say, I want to talk to the boss. And so oftentimes, I'm the one who has to go out there and do that, and I'm happy to do that. And the way you do that is, what's the law? The law says, and I don't have your ordinance in front of me, but you got a notice. You got 10 days to come back to us and tell us what you're going to do. Now you got 30 days to come up with a plan. And now you got 90 days to fix it, or you're going to court. Something like that. In your ordinance, it's the same way. So what you do is you tell both of them, the next door neighbor and the person, what we're doing is we're following the law here, and you've got time. We're not going to come back and tell you you got to have this done by tomorrow or anything. You've got the law, and it's reasonable. If you don't like that law, well, I'll tell you what you do. Come back to the city council and see if the city council wants to change that ordinance. We'll change it and make it different. But right now, it's reasonable and it fits. So what I would say, the reason I'd want to move code enforcement up directly under me is it's a tough issue. I've worked with it for a long time, and generally talking to people and listening to them will get you there. It's when they're not being talked to and they're not listening that they get mad. And I understand how the code enforcement officer, they are busy and they got a lot of things to do and they can't do so many things, and sometimes they get a little short with people. So what I tell the staff is keep working with them. You know, when I say I retain responsibility, I don't want the staff to just go out and say, no, you can't do that. Tell the public, we want to try to tell you yes. Let's see what we can do to say yes, because we work for them. They don't work for us. If we have to tell them no, if you can't get it done, let me go be the one to tell them no, and I'll work through that. Okay, so that's supporting the staff. I want to talk a little bit, get the next slide about knowing the city. I want to talk about a couple of things there. One is credentialed manager. I'm a credentialed manager with the International City Manager Association, and if you've seen my resume, I've been a city manager, city administrator in 3 cities, and an assistant in 2 others. And there's a list of things in the International City Managers Association that you have to do to become credentialed. But one of the things they do is they have a code of ethics. And the city manager's code of ethics has a number of things. I've been asked some questions during the last day or two about what do you do when you have somebody who's doing something that is marginally ethical. Well, I've given the answer to that, but one of the things is the International City Managers Code of Ethics tells you how to do that and tells you what you can do and what you can't do. And I'll point out one of them is it says, do not be political. So I go back again to what I'm saying. We'll give you the technical information and you make the political decision. But that code of ethics down there lists a lot of those things, and that's a good thing to have and good thing to be trained on. And now I want to go back to report back on the strategic goals. I want to come back and tell you about that because, and I said I'd mention that earlier, because those are really tough. And I'm going to give you an example of one, I guess, where I failed, but got to learn the lesson on that. And we had the city, we had reservoirs around the city, and we're building trails around it, and they were ADA trails, and the council had on their list of priorities that year, their #1 goal was to finish the trails around the lakes. And I talked about the parks director here, and we talked about it, you know, trails are something that you'd like to have here, and I understand that. Well, we started working on that, and we worked on it. We got state grants, and we put money into it, and we took some material out of the public works and a little bit from streets, you know, and took some time, and we were getting those trails built. we got about 3/4 of the way around the first lake, and now it's the end of the year, and we're back at the next strategic planning session. A couple of city council members changed, and they said, we don't want to do trails. Okay, so I've already started, and I got the whole staff moving in that direction, and we're doing it. But now, the new council doesn't want to do that. They wanted to take all that money and put it into streets. This was a big street council. Well, all you can do there is go back and tell the people who want trails and tell the staff that we have to change our priorities. The city council has made their decision, and that's their vote. So we'll finish that off, and we'll put a little circle at the end of the trail, and people go 3/4 around the lake, and then they turn around the other 3/4 and come back and complain to us. But I say, well, the time will come. Now, it'll come. There'll be enough public pressure, and there'll be enough, maybe change a couple of city council, and those trails will come back. But right now, we have to move forward with what the city council's policy on. And so that's why this coming back on the strategic goals is important, because now it's changed. Okay, what are the strategic goals for the next year? And it's tough to move those through, and we'll give those information back to you, and we'll do it. I want to talk a little bit more about two things. I want to talk about two other things about knowing the city, and one is customer service. And you probably see on your note there, one of the things in your I think it's in your website or in the advertisement for this position, you said that one of the important things of the city is service. I've got it right here. SERVICE, and those stand for things. And the first one, S, stands for safety. The last one stands for employee excellence. And those are two things I've talked about earlier here, and that is, number one is safety. You can never violate that. And the second thing is, you got to get right employees to do the kind of work that you need to get done. And we have excellent employees, but it's kind of like service. Starts with safety and ends with employee excellence. And so I would concentrate on that. And some people have asked me, I think in the questions we had today, they said, what do you want to do to come to this city? And I said, well, there's a couple of things I'd want to do. One, I take pleasure in accomplishing things, in getting work done. And the other thing is it's a service. I've spent a lifetime of public service, and I would like to continue to do that. And so those things that you have as your goal in service is exactly my goal. The other thing I want to talk about on knowing the city is communications. I want to talk a little bit about communications under that. And I do that because I talked about meeting with the council members, and that's communications, but also meet with the press. Now, I'm glad that you've got a community engagement officer here. In my last city, we had enough for one more employee, and we had, the mayor wanted to get a public information officer, community engagement officer. And then some other people wanted to get a city engineer. Another person wanted to get an IT director. We didn't have an IT director. And so that argument went back and forth. And we ended up getting the IT director. But we didn't get a public information officer, didn't get the community engagement officer. So who then was the community engagement officer? It was me. I wasn't anybody else to do that. And one of the things I did when I was in the military is they sent me to graduate school to teach English at the military academy. And one of the things about that is that's communications, teaching young people, now men and women, to be new Army officers, how to communicate, writing, reading, talking. And so that's an important thing to do. And so now I do that here, and we'll help. I'll have the community engagement officer to do that. But I like to meet the press, and I like to do an article in the newspaper every time it comes out and explain some things to them. Like sometimes a lot of people don't understand how city government works. They think the mayor works for the city administrator. You have people say that kind of nonsense. Why do they say that? Well, somehow they don't understand how government works. So we do an article every week, and little bit by little bit, some people will see that, some people will read that. Also, I like to do a radio station meeting, and every morning after a city council meeting, I give a morning show and let the public know what the city council has done that night. And then I also, I spent half my time meeting with the public, So, you know, you've got maybe a historic preservation society, a Main Street chapter, a Chamber of Commerce. I go to all of those meetings and interact with those people because that's communication. You know what they're getting, and they get what we're getting. And another thing that is a good thing to do, and I have not seen that other places, but you know, you have people coming into your city council meeting. They want to talk for 5 minutes or 3 minutes or hijack the meeting, or, you know how that all works. You've been through that struggle. But one of the things that helps, in Columbia did this, and this is on the Friday morning before the, I think at noon on Friday before the city council. They have a community engagement meeting and they invite the public in, and the agenda has been published. And so the public can come in, and here's the agenda. What questions you have about this. You don't have to be surprised when you come in and jump up and down with city council. We can tell you what that's all about, and then you can speak knowledgeably about it. And that's another good way of communicating, and I really like that, and I would like to see doing that, some things. I'm going to go back to another thing on this, and I want to talk about, I talked about a strategic goal that failed. You know, I talked about the lake trails, but I want to talk about one that succeeded, and that was a pipeline that we were building in my previous city in northwest Missouri, from the Missouri River to the city. It was an 18-inch pipeline to provide water for the city, because these reservoirs that I was talking about, they dry up, and every couple of years you have a tremendous drought, and the city had been wanting to do that for years, and they kept trying, and they had a commission set up to do it, and it was failing. And when I got there, I was there 5 years ago, and that was working, and I saw that, okay, I looked at that. And then I realized it wasn't going to work. And it wasn't going to work unless we put some real effort into it. To come back like hitting the deck running. After a couple of months, you realized what needed to be done. We had two big problems. One is a $43 million project, and it was the largest project that the Regional Development Center for the state had done out of Columbia. And they didn't think we were going to do it, and they were thinking they're going to pull that loan back. So Clark Thomas was the director there in Columbia, and I developed a close personal relation with him and convinced him that we could do that. And I met with him, talked to him every week. And the other thing we had was we had to get 166 easements through property land. You know, and you got people who want to do that, and you're going to pay them for it, but it's not very much. You know, you pay them $1,500 or so because you're going to dig a pipeline across their bean field, but then you're going to cover it back up, and they'll be able to grow it, so they lose a little that year. But you got some, they'd only gotten 44, and they've been working on it for years, only got 44, and you need to get 166. So every week on Friday morning, I had a meeting with the people that were involved in that, the city attorney, the director of the water commission, and we started working on that, worked on it one by one. And one by one, after 5 years, we finally got them. There's every story that you can imagine on that. And we ended up having to send 4 of them to court for a eminent domain, but managed to get it. And just here, about 2 months ago, we got the last one, and the water pipe's going to get put in. And so that was a strategic goal that succeeded, but the council continued to support that, and I was able to be successful in that. But it was by ruthless determination, patience and determination. Every week you worked at it. Every week you'd get one. Sometimes you get another one. But that's how you succeed at some of these strategic goals, is by, if you got council support, you just continue to do patience and determination to get there. Okay, I want to, let me go to the next slide here. And we talked about, you know, these things will be going on in the first year. I want to talk a little bit about the third year, because that was an issue out there. The third year gets tough because now you're talking a little bit in the future. You don't know what a new council might want to do. You don't know how they might want to change, but you work on it. So what you do is you begin to look at those things that have succeeded and the things that have not succeeded, and what now comes off of the goals and what now goes back onto the goals. And so as you communicate, we can put together some recommendations to that. And what you have to do then is look to reviewing the long-range goals, and that's the important thing about it. Now, one of the ways that you do that is I have staff statistics up there, you know, say figures lie and liars figure. Well, maybe so, but you know, the facts are the facts. And in spite of what you might see from some people, the staff isn't going to lie to you. The staff's going to give you the facts as absolutely they know them. And we will get those back to you. And sometimes it changes. Circumstances change. Doesn't mean that you're being lied to. It means that things have changed. And the numbers are the numbers that will come back, the statistics, and we'll bring that back so that we can bring that to you. And I'd like to do that, you know, on that monthly basis, as I talked about before, so you know which things are succeeding, which things aren't succeeding, what things we're not making progress on, and for what reason, and for what things we can move forward on. So it's important to get those staff statistics back and get those to you so you can see them. Now, part of that is I go back to my freshmen at West Point, fourth classmen there called plebes, and you know, you got to make it simple. You want to communicate so they can understand it. So you can't get the statistics out there that are so complicated and so detailed and so much in the weed that, you know, pretty soon you lose everybody. Got to get them so that they're clear, understand, and look at the big picture and get that back to you so you see it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. I'm kind of giving you the big picture and not get stuck down in the weeds. But those are the statistics that have to be brought back to you on a regular basis. And so I would look at those things for things that the staff would bring back. And at first it's a little bit difficult, but then as they get used to it, you know, you got the monthly report on this line item in the budget, or, you know, or the trails or the water line or whatever it is. And so I'd want to bring that back to you. And then the next thing on that is investment in the future. And that's the most difficult, because you're looking a long way out. And I would look at a couple of things that you might have. Let's look here in the city about an outdoor aquatic center. Okay, and that's going to take some money, and that will take some time. But you got the people who are saying, but I want you to fix my potholes now. It's the potholes in my street. That's what needs to be done. So now how are you balancing out investing in the future when you got to put some money there where people don't see the outcome of that right away? Well, it's communications, it's statistics, it's talking to people, and try to show all of that and understand that, because that's a balance that a lot of people don't understand. And one of the things that's so important, and one of the things that you have in your strategic plan, and one of the things that you have in your on your website, is investment in the future. Investment in the future is tough, and we have to take some time for the present to look for the future, and that again is communication. Okay. Let me look. Let's look at another. What's the next slide there? Put another slide up there. All right. Achieve the long-range goals. So now how do we do that? Well, two things. One, I put up there, consolidate the goals. One of the things that works in this is if you go back and look at your strategic planning session for the last several years, certain patterns will emerge from those, and those are ones that are consistent, and you can look at those. You know, it's like the consistency of preventing the droughts by building the water pipe. Okay, and then there are some small things like we want to put up a sign, "Welcome to the city." Okay, well, you can do that, but that's something you can do and you can achieve on a short-term basis. That's not a long-term goal, but what you need to do is look at what goals and what patterns emerge, and those are the ones that you can concentrate on. And then the other thing is developing the new goals. So what are new council members going to say? What do new council members want to do? Well, we'll have to look, see what they say, and you know, they'll come in with things that they want to do. I remember one city, the councilman came in, and new councilman, sidewalks, fix sidewalks. Well, you know, that becomes an issue that you keep working on. Okay, I want to go back and talk about one other thing. Can you give me the next slide? And this is the last slide there, the 5th year, and we'll get get done here before I get my flag raised on me here. So looking to the future, it begins at the 5 years out, or after the third or fourth year, things begin to get a little bit sketchy as what you're looking for. And so that's why I would say what we need to do in looking to the future is trying to consolidate those goals that have long-term implications, and the patterns begin to develop, and you'll see those. Then I put down there the comprehensive plan. I'm not a great fan of the comprehensive plans because you'll pay $60,000 to a consultant to come in and write that plan, and you'll have those things in there. I remember I was in Bloomington, Illinois, as assistant city manager, and in the comprehensive plan, which was that big, there was one page, and it talked about wayfinding signs, and it was one paragraph, and it said we want to have wayfinding signs in the city, this way to the city hall and this way to the police department. Okay, so I was responsible for doing that. So I had the first meeting, and then we appointed a committee, and I gave the minutes. I said, okay, we had the first meeting of the wayfinding sign committee, and we did these things. And the city council put $500,000 into wayfinding signs. Man, that was a big deal. And we went out to get a consulting company to design them, and they designed them, and then the council, the staff, or the committee didn't like that, and so went back to so I kept doing that. So then, it's about 3 years later, and I said, we've had the 49th meeting of the wayfinding committee. Finally, I stopped telling him how many meetings it was because it took so long, because we couldn't spend $500,000 on wayfinding sign, and that was just one paragraph in the comprehensive plan. That's kind of one of the reasons that comprehensive plans are tough, because there's a bunch of stuff in there that goes out 40 years, and it's tough to get those things done. Now, if you have one and you've got one there, that's okay, but I like that yearly strategic plan better, because that tells you the things that you can do this year and next year and the next year. So we may have a comprehensive plan, and I'm not against it, but the comprehensive plan that says these are the things we want to look to for up to 2050 or something. Okay, that's good, and you can look towards those things, but it's not those things you're going to get done on the short term. So comprehensive plan, I don't have any objection to it, but I'm a much bigger fan on the strategic goals and the yearly meetings, and you can look at that in the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years and get those things done. Okay, well, I think I've about taken all of the time that I'm allotted here. And what I wanted to do I want to tell you that I've been in this business now as a city administrator, a city manager, an assistant for a long time. And what I've done in that time is I've made my share of mistakes too. And I've learned from those mistakes. And every year and every time you're a manager, you make those mistakes and you learn from them and you don't make them again. And so why do I tell you that? It's because you would be the beneficiary of those lessons that I've learned. Okay, well, I think that's what I have, and I hope I've finished early, and I'll be available for the next session then.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen.
Okay, thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to invite all three candidates, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Wirt, and Mr. Rasmussen, back into the council chambers for our community Q&A panel.
Where do you think we get to sit?
Right over here, right in the hot seat.
All right.
Grab my water too. Well, good evening. My name is Jessica Hoffman. I'm the Community Engagement Director. And we asked the community and our residents for questions that they could submit that could be answered by you guys. So what we're going to do, I'm going to ask a question. Each one of you is going to provide an answer. It doesn't have to be a long answer. And then each one of you will also have the opportunity to go first in answering the question. There should be a microphone. Shannon?
There is one, I believe, up on the podium, correct? Underneath the.
John, I'll start with you since you gave your presentation first.
Okay?
Please describe your idea of what the city administrator's role is.
Overall, I would say, like I said, I talked about a little bit in my presentation a little bit, is that it's not, the city manager or the city administrator is not that different than other organizations or other entities like the school district and stuff. So, and what that is that whole model is that you bring to bear somebody that has a lot of professional training, a lot of professional credentials, a lot of expertise in certain areas, so that you can be more efficient and more effective. And because some of the things that we're dealing with anymore are increasingly more and more difficult and challenging as far as handling big issues like things that can be very, very detrimental if not handled properly. Just something as simple as a harassment case, and when I say simple, I don't mean to downplay that, but something that something is like a sexual harassment case can have dire consequences for the organization and really could really wound the organization. I will say that on something like that is that to know exactly how to handle those things, how to work through that process. And so really I look at it as that the city administrator's job or city manager's job is to just to handle things day in and day out that come up that require a same level of expertise that some of the other departments do, whether that be a police department, the police chief, dealing with things that when it comes to due process and how his officers handle things. I don't have that level of expertise, but I do have the level of expertise in some of the administrative things to make sure that we're handling finances right, that we're handling and treating our employees in the way that is prescribed by the Fair Labor Standards Act and things like that. And over all of that is that I bring all of that expertise to the benefit of the city council, is that I answer to them every decision that I make and things like that. I answer to them, is that I don't act unilaterally. I say this a lot to people, is that 90% of my job as a city manager or city administrator is already spelled out for me through policy, through state law, through federal law, through city policies. I don't make a whole lot of decisions. I just make sure that the policy that has been set by all of the elected officials through a democratic process is followed. The decisions that they have made in establishing city code and city policies, I just make sure that those are followed. I'm not doing a whole lot of just by the seat of my pants or just what John wants to do. I'm making sure that their wishes are carried out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Matthew, please. Do you need me to repeat the
No,
question?
I got it.
Okay.
Thank you. To build on what John said, I agree with all of that. Some of the views that I have, though, also is that you're kind of the, in a sense, the visionary of the department or of the city as well, because as he said, you're carrying out their desires, but you need to put those desires and that information into the city's vision, because you're the person that's carrying it out on a daily basis. So you're taking that information and making it real, because a lot of times there's ideas and there's projects and those things, but you're the person that has to make it work. You're the person that has to organize it. You're the person that has to take all the different parts and pieces, put it together, and make it something. I also kind of view it too, as I've gone through over this years, is to put it in common perspective, it's almost like you're the head football coach. You know, you've got all the players, you've got your stars and your teams that know what to do, and you organize them to make sure that you as the city can go out there and meet the challenges. So we have a lot of different expertise in those different levels, and you've got to know who is your go-to players. And, you know, you put together almost a playbook with those go-to players to use for their expertise on to solve the specific problem. So if something comes up, you know, it's not uncommon that I think, all right, how are we going to solve this problem? This is my go-to people for this. So, you know, you take all those and you combine it, and you're the person that's kind of running the show.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You ask what is the role, and so I'll say three things: leadership, communication, and information. And when I say leadership, the role of the city manager is to be the leader of the staff. The motto of the infantry school at Fort Benning, Georgia is "Follow me." And so I think the role of the city manager, city administrator is leadership. It's also communication then. Communication is get information back to the public and back to the staff so that they know what they need to think or make decisions on. And then I say that's communication. The third thing is technical information. I'll go back looking at the big picture again, and that is the staff provides technical information to the council, and the council makes the political decisions. And the best technical information that you can give them results in the best political decisions that they can make for the long-term good of the city.
Thank you very much. Matthew, you'll go next. How do you balance competing priorities when multiple stakeholders like city council, staff, and residents have different expectations?
That's tough because everybody's expectations are different. I think one of the best ways to balance it is we still have to look at priorities. Many times that boils down to our priorities is how things are funded, what gets done first, and how we make those decisions. So for example, if there's a priority that is health or safety, we've got to put that first, as opposed to something that may not. As we look through the priorities, we can work down the list of it, but it really is simple, and I guess it comes from, that's kind of a lot of times what I've had to think of in the past is just prioritizing and work through the list and get it done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what happens is it's a competing priorities simply means there's some things you're not going to be able to do. And you go back and you tell the staff there's just some things we're not going to be able to do because you can't do everything and you haven't got money to do everything. But I looked through the strategic plan that the City Council got, the goal setting session from last July, and there were 8 pages of that, and it was pretty comprehensive. But on the last page, it listed the priorities for the major areas. If you looked at the top 2 or 3 items on those, it kind of set the direction of which way you need to go. And so what you do is you come back and you say, these are the things that make the cuts and these things that don't make the cuts, and that goes back then to the City Council. I think the way the state statutes reads is that the City Council is the ultimate governing authority of the municipality, but it exercises authority by sitting in council and by passing resolutions and ordinances. Okay, so we'll bring those back to you, and we'll say these would be our recommendations of where you cut this line, and then you all get to do that. I think I'm first this time.
Oh, John still needs to answer. That's okay.
Could you give me the question one more time, please?
Absolutely. How do you balance competing priorities when multiple stakeholders like city council, staff, and residents have different expectations?
I'll just kind of build on what Stephen said. It's the same thing, is that, you know, we're in a Republican form of democracy, and that's representative democracy. And that everybody that is up here, they are representing a particular ward and everything. So I'm hoping that that the community members that are availing themselves of that they're up there, and these folks are are speaking on their behalf, making decisions on their behalf. So I hope that the community is having those conversations with their representatives, but also at the same time, I'm going to be looking to them. I'm going to defer to them on some things. There's some things that I will, of course, have some input and have some opinions on, but at the same time, I view my role as is that to be very, very careful is that I don't speak for everyone, is that I'm only one viewpoint, and to make sure that they're hearing what they have to say, and hopefully they've gotten some input. And so I would lean on them heavily. Early on in my career, I thought I had to have all the answers, but I've learned over time is that I need to make sure that I'm relying on council to hear what their thoughts are on a lot of these things. And the bottom line is the council sets the priorities for the community. They're the ultimate decision makers for the community, and again, as their representative, they're setting the priorities. And so listening to them, but also at the same time provide the opportunity for people to voice their concerns, is to provide an opportunity for input from the community, I think is valuable so that people can have their voices heard. Sometimes it may not change anything, but I do think there's a certain amount of that sitting and letting people have their say, and do so in a respectful, conscientious way, and everything in a thoughtful way with respect for their position as elected leaders of the community. I think that is also important, but short answer, really defer to the council, let them take the lead on that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Stephen, we'll go to you next. How would you approach developing a long-term strategic plan for our city?
Well, I've talked about that before, and what happens is we would go back and look at the strategic plans that we'd had in the last years and last 3 or 4 or 5 years, and see which patterns come out from that. Sometimes there will be something that you wanted to do is like put up a new sign in front of the city, welcome to Sedalia. Other things you want to do is you want to rebuild the sewer system. Well, those are two very different things. So what you have to do is look at the past long-term goals and try to develop a sensing of what things are working in the future. And that really then is next year's goal, and try to look at the 3 to 5 years out. You have a comprehensive plan that is a long-term plan, and if you're trying to do one that tells what the city is going to do from now to 2050, it gets a little bit spongy there, and so you can have some things, but you'll have different people and different council then. So I would develop a long-term plan by starting with what you've done in the last several years and try to find out what patterns emerge, and kind of come back then to council at a strategic planning session about what those appear to be and what they would like to do for the upcoming ones. To me, a long-term strategic plan is about 5 years. That's about the vision we've got and what we can make happen. You can look to a longer period of time, but the action is about 5 years.
Very good.
Missouri state statutes require cities of a certain size to make sure that they have comprehensive plans, and I would say that they do that. They put that in there for a reason, and they, as far as what they want as how it's conducted, or excuse me, how the process is conducted, is that that is a process that they want the community to be engaged with that, so that there are citizens that are on that. That isn't just a small select group or the in-group making those decisions, but getting a cross-section of the community. So making sure that, I think it starts with making sure that there's a good comprehensive plan, and that it is referred to often throughout when big decisions are being made that affect the community, is that they're taking a look at that. The council and staff are taking a look at that, referring back to that. I would also say making sure that, and those things always comprehensive plans always entail a vision statement or a mission statement. And so referring back to those things to help get us back on track a little bit, to keep us in the forefront of our minds, exactly what are we trying to do, why are we trying to do it, and making sure that we don't lose sight of that, of what our role is and everything. And then I would also say annual goal setting is to take a, as the council, as we get ready to, one thing that we have to remind ourselves is that the budget is the largest policy decision that is made by council, and they make it every year. And so making sure that as far as our annual goal setting is that we're saying what and being responsive to what is happening in our community. And so it's just a lot of checking and not just putting ourselves on autopilot, making sure that we're doing a lot of checking in and referring back to why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because it says it in the comprehensive plan. This was our goals at the beginning of the years we went into this budget year. This is part of our mission statements, those type of things, so that we can very clearly articulate to ourselves, but also the community, why we are making the decision that we're making.
Very good. Matthew?
So I think it's important, and to build off of what they've said, is the community input. We receive that. I mean, and that's part of comprehensive plans a lot of times. Through that, we're building trust through that engagement, and we're building buy-in, and we're building their feedback, because what the community has to say about what they see as the future is important. We can still build upon things we know we need. We may need to do forms of assessments, like needs assessments, on equipment or facilities or things like that, where we look at the needs of our assets or the needs that we have for growth. But through that, we can also look at the needs that we see for the community that might help with improving health or improving other quality of life issues. I think also that we need to set goals with it, both also through that engagement partnership with the community of what they feel is goals, but then also what our staff has for goals and what they see. A lot of times when you're the subject matter expert of that particular area within the city, your goals and your expectations and your vision for the future is very important to bring into that plan, because a lot of times what that profession, or that industry, where those things are going, and you have a vision for it. And then also look at the economic development community's thoughts and input on it as well, so that we are mirroring what the future of that is and how we can grow.
Wonderful. Thank you. John, you'll be next. Can you share an example of a time you had to address a budget shortfall, and what steps did you take, and what was the result?
I would say I've been fortunate to take a look at, I would point back to in 2010, the financial crisis of 2010. I was working for the city of Laramie as far as, and I was a budget and management analyst for the city. And we were facing a huge budget shortfall during that time from our sales taxes. And because that was the biggest revenue source for the city, was sales taxes. And so the process that we used is that we went back and looked. It's like, all right, we're going to have to, mid-year, we're going to have to cut. And so looking at revenue projections. And we went back and took a hard look at what the percentage was of, say, the general fund budget. We looked at all of that and said, the police department is X amount of dollars, the fire department is X amount of dollars. And then we went back and made, all right, we're going to need to, based on those percentages that we need to cut, how much each individual department was going to need to cut based on on that. And that was a good starting point, but we realized along the lines that was going to cut into public safety, which is usually two of the biggest departments. And so we had to hedge on that and just be kind of agile and look for the biggest issues of where we could cut as far as stopping non-essential purchases. We still needed to do police cars. But things that were discretionary in nature, we pulled back on. Still just put a pin in them. It's like, all right, they may carry over to the next budget year. We want to wait and see as far as that goes. Our biggest aspect is that we wanted to minimize any staff cuts and cutting employees and things like that. That was the biggest thing because we knew this was not going to last forever. It may take us a little bit to get through, but it was not going to last forever. And we didn't want to make a life-changing decisions for our employees. Let's think about what other things that we can cut, what services we can reduce, and some things. And some of it is some of the big parks we didn't mow quite as often. They got a little more shaggy and things like that. You don't think, well, that doesn't, it did. That saves money as far as staff time, gas, and things like that. That's making a lot of things last a little longer. And we just moved through it. What was non-essential, the highest priority was taking care of our staff through that. Start there, and then we move through the other things of what can we live without or push off to another year.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matthew.
So my past experience with it, probably the first time was I was as a commander, and we had little to no growth or flat revenue. And so through that, it's prioritizing. I keep going back to that. Well, we got to prioritize, and service comes first. So, providing the services that people expect and expect us to see. Obviously, keeping the staff in place is a priority, but we set those priorities to make sure that we're getting the services, like that we're picking up trash, that we are providing public safety, that we're keeping the streets up. Set those first. With that, we experienced a little bit. Probably the most recent that I had was in 2020 when we pulled back, not knowing what was going to happen within during COVID, and we set priorities in that situation. And we went through our budgets and we looked at items that weren't absolutely necessary and cut those to see how the revenue stream was going to go, depending on how it went. And actually, it turned out better than we expected, and we were able to continue on with a lot of those programs. But in those situations, that's what we got to do. Until, like John's point, is we've got to figure out where we're at, what level of percentage that we need to cut, and where that goes. And if that gets worse, then we have to cut deeper in it. It reminds me of an experience that I had in command school when the professor walked in the day during budgeting, and he said, cut 10, 20, 30% of your budget and give a presentation tomorrow morning. And he turned around and walked out, and we all stood and looked at each other. But you learned real fast how you had to do that. And of course, as you're problem solving through that and prioritizing, you want to try to maintain the services as deep as you possibly can. As you prioritize your needs for the community and keep that service in place.
Okay, well, thank you. You asked for for an example of how we did that. I'm going to give you two examples and then tell you how we do that. The first example is we were building trails around the lakes, ADA trails, and the council didn't want to put any more money into that because they want to put money into streets and things. So what do? Well, you just stop building the trails until the council decides they want to do that. Okay, you can do that. Now we had City Hall repair, and the roof had leaked, and we were getting mold down behind the walls. Bricks were beginning to crack, windows were leaking, and the foundation was causing a crack. And there's $2 or $3 million that need to be put into that. Well, you can't just stop doing that and waiting. So how do you do that? Well, you got two ways, really. One is you ought to have a reserve in your general fund to take care of that. How much do you have? Well, and I'm not sure what you might have here, and I maybe should have asked on that, but you got to have a 15% reserve, which is a fund balance, just to make payroll. Taxes come in and taxes don't come in, and you got to have that. To be sound and safe, you got to have 25%. And then, if you really want to be good, you'd have 50%. But it's tough to keep 50% because the public says, wait a minute, you're charging me these taxes and you just put it in the bank. Let me keep that money and I'll put it in my bank account. So where does that balance come out? Well, 25% or so. And can you take the money out of the fund balance to achieve those shortfalls? Maybe. If you can't, then what you may have to do is you might have to go out and borrow the money. You do a bond issue for fixing City Hall, because there's some things you can not do and there are some things you have to do. And you can take it in one of those two ways. Usually it's your reserve, or you have to go out and take a loan.
Thank you. Matthew, you're up. Can you share an example of a time you successfully resolved a conflict between community members and the city government?
Yeah, in 24 years of it in law enforcement, there was a lot of examples of that, because you're seen in law enforcement as the city government, as the government, anytime you're enforcing anything. So in those situations, especially, when you encounter those, the important thing is to listen to the other side, to bring about that, to get out the information. What is their sticking point? What is it that they're upset about? A lot of times people want to be heard, and then you explain your side or what is going on. Today during some interviews, I had some difficult things that I really probably won't share in those because of the situations, but dealing with people that had been involved in very traumatic situations, I found that listening to them and being a human being to them and understanding their side, we didn't necessarily have to agree in the situation or agree on the resolution, but at least we understood our sides. But it comes a long way. And if there's the ability that I would have to meet them and to come to some sort of compromise, it would go a long way. But with a mutual respect and understanding, we were able to many times get there. I deal with a lot of the complaints that come in from residents in my office, and especially when I was assistant. And when the folks would come in and I could help them, and it was something that we could achieve, whether it was a pothole, whether it was missed trash, whether it was they felt that something hadn't been handled correctly, when I listen to them and when I can help them as much as I can with the things that I can. For example, many times they would have something, 2 or 3 different issues they'd want to work out. And I was only able to help them on 2, but they respected that because I would listen to them. So I think those are good examples and good things to follow, just those common courtesies and mutual respect that we have for each other, because when it all comes down to it, I'm just as much a part of them as they are a part of me in the community.
Well, yeah, those are good answers, and those bear on the problem for sure. Said that compromise is the essence of diplomacy, and so if you can talk about it and give somebody a little bit of what they need, that would be good. I think the right answer is when everybody is equally unhappy, you've probably got the right compromise. Sometimes it's tough to do that, and I'll give you an example of that. And this example where it fails, and that was we had a aquatic park that was managed by a third party, and we paid them to do that, and that was working fine. But we paid them $87,000 to do that management, and we had some members of the council who said, we just want to save that money. We'll do it in-house. Our Parks Department will do it. Well, and this was with an advisory Parks Department, not an administrative Park Department like here. Well, many of the people in the Parks Department, many of the people in the city wanted us to have that done by our third party, that they did a good job of running it and it worked fine, and the public didn't want to fuss around it. Well, the council wanted to do it in-house. So how do you do it? Sometimes there isn't a compromise. You can't do it halfway. And so when it comes down to that, what do? Ask the council for a vote. And that's just what you have to do sometimes. And sorry, but that's what officials on the city council are elected to do. And sometimes you come down to that point and you just got to put it to them to vote.
I'm sorry, I need the
That's okay.
question again.
Can you share an example of a time you successfully resolved a conflict between community members and the city government?
A specific incident is not really springing to mind, but the thing that I found is that staff, being the front line of everything with the operations and the things that we're doing, is that they have the opportunity. They're being on the front line. They are really making sure that they hear the things, the issues, the problems before anybody else does a lot of times. And so one thing that I've really appreciated in the places that I've been is that I've had councils that really want issues and conflicts and problems resolved at the lowest level possible. They wanted to be dealing with, the visioning of the community, and that's what they wanted the council to be working on. So they empowered us to make decisions, and I empowered staff to make decisions and handle those things at the lowest possible spot, instead of turning into something that's just simple, instead of turning it into a issue that comes before the city council. And so that is really what we stressed, is that, there's some things that let's resolve that. Let's have those conversations with people. And I've found over my time in this career field is that just a lot of communication and taking time. Yeah, the city managers or city administrators can be super busy, but setting things to the side, taking a few minutes to pick up the phone, call that individual. When that person walks into the door, they want to talk to somebody. If they care enough to, move away from, take out of their everyday life to come in and talk to the city manager or something, then I need to make sure that I am being responsive, putting aside what I have going on, if I possibly can, and then attending to their needs and their concerns. Because if they're caring that much about it, to take time out of their day. And what I found is that sometimes just listening is enough. Just listening, they need somebody to vent, they need somebody to, and sometimes it can be just very, very simple, and it can be handled with a phone call, picking up the phone, talking to a department head, or just whatever is that, but taking a moment. And then there's going to be problems that, okay, you don't like a decision was made, but what I found is that a lot of people, most people are generally reasonable. When you say, okay, yeah, I understand it. Here is why this happened. Here is why this decision was made. And people are generally okay with, what, as long as they have a full understanding, they may not agree with the decision. But if you've taken the time to communicate with them, to share the thoughts, to share how the decision came to that decision, because all they do is see the decision. They don't see all of the options. And when you explain some of that sort of thing, that goes a long way. But also just dealing with them in a professional manner, and, okay, I'm too busy to talk to you. That just doesn't fly. Take a moment and just really stress the communication. And I think that goes a long way, and it pays future dividends.
Great. Stephen, you'll be next. How would you handle a situation where a vocal group of residents opposes a city council decision you support?
By the way, I'm gonna start that answer by answering a little bit on the last question. And what John said is right. Sometimes it's just people want to be listened to, and that's an important part of this. Well, what happens is you say in that question, how would I do that to do something that the city council said that I support? Well, I'm I'm kind of obligated to support the city council. City council makes a decision, and so that's the issue that we will go forward with. And it goes back to what we were saying before. People want to they want to oppose to that. So you listen to them, and you can say, okay, well, if you'd like to, we'll bring that up to the city council again for a discussion item, and see how that works. I had one where it was like that, and 3 times we brought it back to the city council with new information, new discussion. 3 times the city council voted the opposite way. So what happens is we're obligated to support the policies that put forward on the city council, because they have 2 fundamental goals. One is they approve the budget, and 2, they set policy. And when they set policy, that's what you have to do. And if the public doesn't like it, we can talk about it and keep going back to it. But sometime you have to go through and you have to discuss. You have to have comments with them and explain to them that this is the decision that was made for these reasons. And ultimately, you're just going to have to move on. In this case, I was telling, we brought it back to council for discussion 3 times, and I think they had the answer then.
Kind of building on what Stephen said, just that I understand that, because I've been kind of in those situations. Sometimes it's not even something that the council maybe supports. People don't understand a little bit sometimes is that, I'll give you, say, planning and zoning, for instance, is that if zoning of a particular parcel of land, and I've dealt with this exact issue, a particular parcel of land was zoned had a particular zoning on it. And in that particular zoning, it allowed for garbage transfer stations. And so from that standpoint of that, the person that brought that forward and said a local trash hauler is that they wanted to do a transfer station there. And about a half a mile away, there was a residential neighborhood and everything else. They were just next to an industrial zoned area. And so that, as you can imagine, generated a lot of public input, a lot of concern from those folks worrying about property values, worrying about comfort on their property, and are they going to smell it, and all of that, which, fully I understand. But at the same time, is that here is all the things that are allowed in that particular area. That is written by code. And the person came forward and meeting all of the obligations and all the requirements that are set forth in code and state law to be able to do that. So from that standpoint, council can't come back and change the rules and say, well, I don't like that there, and say, well, you got to do this, and add this, and this, and this, or I'm not going to let you do that, when the city code says that they can do that. At that point, they become what's called in law ministerial, that the council doesn't have a lot of discretion in that. City code says that they're allowed to do that, they are allowed to do that. And if the city council doesn't allow them to do that, that means that they've opened up the city to a lawsuit, is because they are violating their own law at that particular point. And in fact, they could come back, they could go to court and say, get a judge to make a declaration of that. City council, City of Sedalia, you have to give that person a business permit to allow them to do that. So from that standpoint, I understand that, but just because I'm talking about it and saying they are allowed to do that, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm for it or against it. It just means this is what the law says. And so with a lot of that type of stuff, sometimes when it comes to businesses, is that I'm just telling council, this is what our city codes say. This is, all we're doing is communicating that. We're not necessarily advocating for that. We're trying our best to remain neutral and dispassionate from it, for whatever is coming up, and just providing that information, and the council makes that decision and stuff. But explaining that as best we can to the community is that I had to go through that process. And it's like the council doesn't, but at that particular point in time, maybe they didn't want it. In fact, a couple of them spoke against it. But again, city code says that they can do that, they can't come back and do that without risk to lawsuit. So just, again, having that discussion with people, telling them what is happening and why and everything. And fortunately, it worked out. The person that wanted to do that said, nope, I don't want that fight, and he went somewhere else and everything, which council directed us, change that. Change that in our city code so that's not allowed. And so we were able to do that after he withdrawn his application.
Thank you.
When you're the third person, there's leaves a little less to talk about, but I'll kind of go back from it from the standpoint of, an explanation. I'm going to take this from the standpoint of, as you said, that I approve of this, I agree with this, and a local group opposes it. So it's an explanation of my reasoning. It kind of goes back to some of what we talked about already setting here. It's that listening and the knowledge why I understand it, because a lot of times people have different perspectives, and once those perspectives are explained, they can understand. Also, the transparency of how I come to my conclusion. It's why I think that, or why maybe if it's, I'm supporting a decision that council has, how we came to that conclusion. A lot of times, everybody doesn't necessarily have all the facts and doesn't know all the information. So start with that. So we want to dispel and make sure that there's no rumors, there's no misinformation, there's no incorrect information, because a lot of times that will solve the issue. And then I can talk a little bit about why I would feel that it's important. And then if we still have an issue, I think it's important for people to understand how they have relief through due process. If that is part of the situation, they might need the information, because sometimes people, it's almost kind of like when someone would come in and complain on a police officer. If they knew they could make a complaint, many times that was enough, and that they did make the complaint and it was investigated, then it was that helped, knowing they have that relief, knowing that there is a form, a process, and a way to counteract the situation if they so choose, or that they can appeal it. It's just kind of like when we have public hearings, when there's different things. People want to know that they have their opportunity for due process.
Very good. Thank you.
What question are we on?
We're getting ready to start a new one.
As far as
Oh, 7? Yeah. You're up next.
okay, great. I was just wondering, all right, how many more?
Describe your experience.
Yeah, well, I know I'm not the only one asking that, so.
Describe your experience overseeing key city operations such as